This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. And I got to admit, this is one of our most packed shows we've had in a long time, and I'm really looking forward to it. Free agency begins tomorrow. Greg Wyshynski of ESPN will jump on first with us, take us around the league on what he's hearing before the sweepstakes get going officially tomorrow around the league. And then right after that, Scott Wheeler of The Athletic's going to jump in for a few minutes and fill us in on what he thinks about the Winnipeg Jets selections at the draft. And I do know from what he wrote, was a big fan of the Rutger McGroarty pick. And I got to tell you, the energy and excitement that he's sort of injected into the fan base has been really cool to see. And I can't wait to have him on around 2 o'clock today, about an hour from now. The first, hopefully, of many visits to WST from the Jets' first-round selection at 14th overall, Rutger McGroarty. And then after that, still much more to get to. We'll focus in on the home team, looking ahead to tomorrow with Mike McIntyre of the Winnipeg Free Press. Shout out to everybody listening on the podcast. Thanks for making us a part of your day. If you ever have the opportunity to pop in on Apple or Spotify and give us a 5-star rating and a review, it always helps us spread the channel. And of course, thanks to the YouTube crew, which is growing by the minute. And a big welcome to Chuck WPG. Thanks for being a new member and supporter of Winnipeg Sports Talk on the YouTube screen. Speaking of thanks, can't do this without the great sponsors that make this show happen each and every day. Shout out to our friends at Assiniboia Downs. Cannot wait to get out there tonight and welcome our winners and their guests from the Pick 6 contest a few weeks ago. Should be a heck of a lot of fun. Coolbet Canada, Canadian Club, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Boston Pizza, Princess Auto, Little Brown Jug, Not Autocorp, Breezy Bend, Royal Sports, Manitoba Battery, Culligan Water, F Apparel, Vita Health Fresh Market, Wallace & Wallace, and of course, our friends over at Aikens Lake. So, Wyshynski, Scott Wheeler, Rutger McGroarty, Mike McIntyre, let's get to it. Lots to get ready for. Less than 24 hours away from our extended free agency show tomorrow on WST. Let's get Remis in here. Remis, what's good? Ready to pick some winners tonight or what?
Yeah, don't forget about me. I'm here too, talking about free agency. This is a really exciting time. A lot of people in every stream, going back a couple weeks. As far as picking winners at Assiniboia Downs, we will be out there tonight. Got the big race. What, race 3? Is that the one?
Yes. Race 3, Winnipeg Sports Talk night at the races. I think we'll get to head down into the winner's circle afterwards.
8:30?
Get a photo. Yes, it should be around there. We'll get there into the dining room and begin our assault on that amazing prime rib buffet in and around 6:30. Get a couple bets in on the first few races and then, head down. So if you are popping by the track tonight, just look for us, race 3, heading out to the winner's circle. Pop by, say hi. Be a great chance, and it looks like a beautiful night as well for live racing. So
nice.
I'm really looking forward to it. Big thanks to Sherry and Darren for taking such good care of us and our guests. We're really looking forward to that. So that is all tonight. But before we get to that tonight, Remo, lots happening in and around the National Hockey League as we are counting down the hours to free agency, paying close attention to what's happening in Calgary right now with Johnny Gaudreau as the number 1 name on that list. Frank Saravelli in the last hour or so reporting that he's hearing that the Calgary Flames may have, in fact, upped their offer to Johnny Gaudreau into the 8-year, $10 million offer, and one that would make him not only the highest paid player in Calgary franchise history, but among the richest in the NHL. And as Frank mentioned very accurately, if Gaudreau walks, it likely won't be because of money. I have a hard time imagining there'll be $80 million on the table anywhere else in the National Hockey League. Maybe he wants to go closer to home. Maybe he wants to play with somebody, but you can't fault the Flames for not ponying up with a legitimate offer for a Hart Trophy candidate and one that would make him historically rich when it comes to Calgary Flames players.
And as Johnny, we've seen this happen in Winnipeg where the Jets have to go through an order of signing guys before they can get to other guys. And this Johnny Gaudreau contract is kind of holding up a lot of stuff with their other UFAs and RFAs. You look at the Flames on cap friendly here, Huss. They got to do a lot of work this summer as far as UFAs go. I know on defense, Zadorov and Goodbranson, they're interested in coming back, according to Salim Valji of TSN. However, they got to figure out what's going on with Johnny Gaudreau here. And then, you got these two big RFAs, Andrew Mangiapane and Matthew Tkachuk. And as far as their cap space, they got 26 mil right now. If you give 10 of that to Johnny Gaudreau, and then you still have to sign your RFAs, and you got to fill out their defense, I guess.
Yeah, and Matthew Tkachuk, by the way, is a $9 million qualifying offer.
So that's I don't know how they make this work here, Calgary. And I think we were talking about that yesterday, throughout the year, just how tough of an offseason is. So they made the offer. We'll see what happens. Maybe you make some trades after to free up some room. This is going to be some serious cap gymnastics for Calgary. So I don't know, man. They might get a step back this year just because they're so up against it.
Well, one of the other things that I think yesterday showed us, especially after we finished the program, was seeing some of the other. I know we were talking about Evgeni Svechnikov not being qualified by the Winnipeg Jets. And it was still a little surprising considering just how cheap of a qualifying offer it was. We're basically talking about near NHL minimum. But some of the other players around the league that did not get qualifying offers, I talked about Dylan Strome yesterday. I'm still stunned that a guy that had 22 goals and almost 50 points doesn't get qualified as a former third overall pick for $3.6 million. And then other players have now found themselves available, like Sonny Milano in Anaheim. And I think right now, Remis, we are really seeing this squeeze on the middle class and on teams in the National Hockey League that realize they are going to have some major cap issues, and the first order of business not committing to, frankly, some talented players that can absolutely play part of their way to give themselves a little bit more wiggle room heading into tomorrow and, of course, over the course of the rest of the regular season.
Yeah, sure. To Sportsnet, they got this handy list here of who hasn't qualified their RFAs. Yes, Anaheim, Sonny Milano, Sam Steele. I saw Brett Howden on the list. Interesting. Yeah, Dominic Kubalik. I don't know if we talked about him specifically, but Dylan Strome. We mentioned Obey Kubel and Avalanche. And look, even if their qualifying offer might be a tiny bit more, these teams are trying to save every single dollar they can. And there were some interesting names out there yesterday. You wonder if the Jets are looking for any. Oh yeah, Brandon Lemieux, former Jet. He's a free agent now. Who I saw Canadians surprised Rem Pitlick, Cale Clegg. He made a bit of an impact as well at times. They may have played him on DraftKings when he got the power play role. So there's Jonathan Dahlen was one in San Jose. A lot of surprises there, and now there's some Brent Burns rumors out there. So there were definitely Andre Kasha in Toronto, who was a good player when healthy, but he just couldn't stay healthy. And so there were and Samsonov as well in Washington. So it seems like they've been linked to Darcy Kemper as a goalie. So I agree with you. Big squeeze. Teams trying to save as much money as they can. Maybe they sign them to a lower contract, but saying, hey, you can become a free agent. So a couple more free agents. I think it's good for the Jets, who are probably going to be in the bargain bin of free agents, as they seem to be every year. But you hope they can find a diamond in the rough. Maybe the next. Everyone's looking for the next Valerie Nikushkin. And speaking of Nikushkin, he got paid $6.125 million AAV.
8 years
for 8 years. And hey, you win a cup, you're an impact player. I don't know. This contract could work out. I think it'll work out for both sides.
Well, I mean, his resurgence, I shouldn't say resurgence, but emergence with the Colorado Avalanche after such a disappointing start, looking like a complete bust in Dallas. is incredible. I mean, I keep going back. We saw this guy over and over again playing with the Dallas Stars. 57 games, no goals. Like, I mean, he was thought to be a complete whiff, and then gets his opportunity with Colorado and stepped up huge this year. And as big as his 25 goals and 52 points in the regular season were, his performance in the playoffs even more impactful. And then you see what he was playing with in the Stanley Cup final with that broken foot. I think he became a little bit of an Avalanche legend. Still has plenty of time left on his career. So I'm not sure that the $8 million, I mean, it's not like you're signing a 31-year-old player that's going to take you into 39. So it could very well work out well. It does seem, though, with that signing that Nazem Kadri is going to be hitting the market. And I just finished up the Lock Shop with Dustin Nielsen. And by the way, wherever you get podcasts, give us a sub and check it out. Dusty and I were going through a bunch of the Coolbet lines on NHL Free Agency. And what's really interesting right now, I mean, usually the bookmakers, they know what they're doing. I mean, Claude Giroux's minus 110 to go to Ottawa. That probably has a lot to do with Drager's report that it's highly likely he gets him. Sounds like Kemper's going to Washington. He's minus 333. Jack Campbell, same number to go to the Edmonton Oilers. What really stood out to me, though, Nazem Kadri plus 150 to the Detroit Red Wings or New York Rangers. Rangers make sense, although certainly a major cap crunch if they do go that direction. But Detroit's fascinating. I mean, I guess he just won a cup. He's got his ring. Maybe they can offer the most, and he would be a great guy to sort of help build around this resurgence. But speaking of the Rangers, I'll tell you what, it already seems like Andrew Copp is assuredly going to see what is out there on the open market. And I can tell you that if they make a big play for Nazem Kadri and get him, there is zero chance Andrew Copp's going back to the Big Apple.
Yeah, I was trying to put a picture on like which free agents here we're keeping an eye on, because we know the Jets aren't going to be a big player, but I guess we could hang on. Okay, where are former players? Or where Paul Stastny is one. I think we'd like to see him back, but it seems like the writing's on the wall. But Andrew Copp, the former Jet, and Arthur Staple of The Athletic reporting today, sources say that the Rangers are out on Andrew Copp. And I'll bring it up here. Sides talked over the weekend, but the Rangers are likely looking elsewhere for their number 2 center spot. And I think kind of surprising, because he seemed to fit in so well playing with Strome and Panarin. However, I think any player would fit in well with Panarin. I don't think that's a Copp specific thing, but he was a very productive player. I think he's almost point a game or slightly over. Plays power play, plays penalty kill. Or is it even strength? He's smart defensively. I think he would help a lot of teams. I'm curious. I think before the season, we were said, okay, well, he's not a $5 million player, but the question is now, is he going to get $6 million, Andrew Copp? And I think that is a player we'll be keeping. One of the former Jets will be keeping, Evander Kane maybe being the other. But so we'll wait and see where he goes. I am curious. Detroit, we've kind of been saying for a while, but as you said, if they're in on Kadri, definitely no room for Copp.
Yeah, I'll be very interested to see where Copp ends up. I'll also be interested if the Jets try and go back and get into that mix. I mean, he was willing to sign a long-term deal here last year. Now they'll have a bunch of competition to do it, and maybe they'll be elsewhere.
He's like, he said that here, but I think he's just playing the PR game. I'm sure he liked it, and he's like, but I mean, they never came to him, so I don't know. They went to arbitration.
I mean, they had all sorts of talks. I mean, it went through. They didn't go to arbitration. Well, I mean, before they did. They didn't last
year. Previously.
Yeah. But I mean, last year it came down. Like once they had added the $10 million in Dylan and Nate Schmidt, it basically came down to Copp and Neil Pionk, and the team went and signed Pionk to the 4-year extension, and they knew they didn't have enough money left under the cap to get Copp done. I'm just saying that if the Rangers are out and they can't do it, if you want to get the money that you feel you deserve, there'll only be so many spots. And I'm not even sure that the money would be available here, to be honest, with what's happening in Winnipeg. It certainly would be made much more likely to happen if they had already been able to trade one of their defensemen. Although realistically, you don't need to be at the cap until the season starts. So you do have some time to work that. But it's better to have the cap space than assume you'll get the cap space later. We've definitely heard Nashville. And I think a lot of people have put connected the dots knowing that he's a Michigan guy and maybe think that, he'd be a good fit back in Detroit. But I do wonder, after the success that he had last year, the taste of that run to the conference finals as well in 17-18, how much is it going to be about money for Andrew Copp and how much it'll be about the best chance to win? I think it's probably going to be more about money because, of course, he's bet on himself and worked hard a long time to get to this point where he has the opportunity to sign with the highest bidder and the best deal for him in his career.
Yeah, I'm looking at Evolving Hockey's projections for him. They have him at a 4-year term, $5.768 million. So we'll see if he can get that. And they projected a different team as well. So is Nashville a fit?
Hey, just quickly, Lynn Reimer in chat saying Copp's not coming back. If he wanted to be here, he would have extended here. Well, he didn't have the opportunity to extend here. I mean, there was no discussions on that. The Jets spent all the money, and, we just said, think about last summer. I mean, they had a very limited amount, and there were 2 remaining RFAs. One was Neil Pionk, one was Andrew Copp. Pionk got the long-term deal, or the 4-year deal, and Copp was forced to settle for a 1-year deal. So, I mean, he was pretty clear beforehand. He was hoping to get a long-term deal. He was hoping to stay here, and listen, it wasn't offered to him. So you can say a lot of things about other players that have sort of wanted that. Andrew Copp, that's not a fair description of what happened between the Jets and Andrew Copp. They didn't have the money, so it never even got to that point. He didn't have the opportunity to say no to an extension.
He could have signed a long-term deal before for 2 negotiations. Look, they went to arbitration for one. They argued for another. The offer didn't come, and so he says to the media he was looking at houses and trying to sign. Look, I don't know if that's true or not, but it's easy to play the PR game and get fans on your side by putting that out there without actually having to do that.
You make it sound like he only said that after it all went down and he got the 1-year deal. That wasn't the case at all.
I'm saying he said that this past after the last one. Did he not?
Yeah, but I think he also said that beforehand as well, that he was looking for a long-term contract and he didn't get the offer. I mean, I don't know how you can give the guy a hard time about that.
I don't know. It seems like him and the Jets could never agree what his value was. And there was always that difference. And that's why it didn't work out, because I guess he thought he was here. The Jets thought he was here.
Did the Jets ever offer him a long-term contract?
I don't know if they did or didn't. I have no idea. But I'm just saying, he said that. Look, he just
like it's revisionist history to start saying, "Oh, he turned down," because that simply has never been reported.
I never said he turned down anything. I'm just saying he floated that out there in training camp that he was trying to sign long term. I don't know, guys.
Well, he also said at the end of the season before that he was hoping to get something done, and I mean, it wasn't. He didn't just only say that after he was stuck with the 1-year deal.
I'm just saying, look, guys say stuff, you can believe it or not. I like Andrew Copp, great player. Would have loved to see him here long term. I think we're arguing about semantics here.
Yeah, that being said, I wouldn't hold my breath if you're a big Copp fan and think that he's going to be coming back at one point. But I will say this. I mean, stranger things have happened in that, I mean, the Winnipeg Jets would love to have a guy like Andrew Copp back in the fold. And as I said, maybe we're wasting our time. That Copp will have some nice offers, but I will interested. Do you think he gets the contract that you just rolled out from where was it, from Evolving Hockey, Reem? I mean, 5 years at close to 5.8. It only takes one, and if you're going to the top dollar, maybe that is out there. I'm not sure what sort of team though has that money available for Andrew Copp.
Yeah, that's the thing. They said 5.768. I saw Frank floating out, 5.756. I don't know who has money. And the thing about who has money, here we're following these Blake Wheeler trade rumors that Frank's putting out. Well, if he's got control and wants to go to a team that wants to win, what team that is looking to win has the cap space for him? There's not many, or if any at all. So I am, as Jeff said, yesterday it'll be like a team's like Plan B or C if they strike out today. So maybe that's something to watch too.
Well, I think, we're going to find out how much and how willing Blake Wheeler is to move out of Winnipeg over the next little while, because you're exactly right. That perfect landing spot and making $8.25 million is probably not out there. Now, if you really just want to get out of Winnipeg and don't want to deal with coming back in the aftermath of last season and feel like a fresh start is necessary and the best thing for he and his family, there'll be some options out there, but they might not be ones that you'd really want to stomach. And part of me thinks, Stream, that we've spent so much time talking about the changes that have to be made that, presumably haunted this team last year and really held them back. Now that they're sort of out in the open and everyone's talked about the challenges for Rick Bowness coming around, it is almost sort of half funny to think about what it might be like if all those guys do come back and how they try to run it back in a very different way. What happens to the captaincy and all those things. I mean, I still think from what we've heard, the most likely ending is Blake Wheeler being elsewhere. But I've also said, Wheeler's a guy that, can still absolutely contribute. Once you're taking on, if you're talking about buying out Blake Wheeler, you better have a really good option to make the most out of the money that you're getting back, because you're losing a hell of a hockey player, a guy that is a major contributor in so many ways with this team. So there hasn't been a lot clarified so far up until this point of the offseason, other than the swing and miss on Barry Trotz and of course, the new head coach, Rick Bowness. But we'll talk about this with Mike McIntyre a little later on, and looking forward to seeing what Wyshynski has to say about the what he's hearing around the Winnipeg Jets heading into free agency. Before we do that, a big thanks to our friends at Wallace & Wallace, Winnipeg's fencing and overhead door specialists. They've been serving residential and commercial customers since 1946. If your property needs the security and protection of a new fence, or if winter did a number on your old one, they've got you covered with every kind possible: vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain link, or wood. They're also the garage door experts and boathouse doors as well. Find out more. Pop down and see them at 90 Lawson Road, or online at wallacefences.com or wallacedoors.com. And again, thanks to everyone that took advantage of that free laser piece for the garage. They went very quickly. Shout out to everyone that popped by there. Wallace & Wallace, 90 Lawson Road. And of course, you can also hit them up online or give them a call at 452-2700. I'm pumped. I'm going down to see Andrew after the show today at F Apparel and get fitted up for maybe a new suit. I'm also really interested to check out some of the other things they have. And we spend so much time talking about suits because that is their main bread and butter. Of course, the best and most affordable custom suits in town. But I'm looking forward to seeing some of the accessories, the chinos, golf pants, and more. And of course, taking advantage of that great deal for summer right now. Custom shirts, 3 for $210. Pop down and see them in person at 190 Smith Street, or check them out online at epphapparel.com. I'll fill you in tomorrow on the full fitting experience with Andrew and the guys. Really looking forward to heading down today after the show. Hey, our friends at Vita Health are busy this summer. Listen, they've always been the go-to spot in Winnipeg for the best selection of local and organic natural groceries, supplements, and beauty products. But with barbecue season here, they've got some amazing, delicious, and healthy options to throw on the grill, including bison burgers and lean bison steaks. Had a few of the bison burgers at that barbecue they had a couple of weeks ago, and they were absolutely phenomenal, not to mention chicken and so much more. And of course, if you're entertaining, pop by Vita Health, be a considerate host, and get some great non-alcoholic options for some of your guests. They've got all sorts, including the Sober Carpenter beer series, which are very popular as well. Vita Health Fresh Market, 7 Winnipeg locations, including the newest store in Linden Ridge, and online at myvita.ca. And man, I am counting down the days. Early August, going to be heading out for a few days out to Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, my favorite few days of the year. I've been so fortunate to get out there and hang with the Turen family and learn about fishing in a world-class operation with some people that know what's up, that can help even beginners like me slay master anglers. The best part about it all is you're on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg, including the flight up to Aikens Lake. If you haven't been there before, give them a buzz. Talk to them online AkinsLake.com or Akins Lake on all their socials, and maybe get planning for a once-in-a-lifetime trip for either the family or a corporate outing next year at Akins Lake. All right, still to come on the program, Jets first-round pick, Rutger McGroarty. He is joining us coming up at the top of the hour. We will also have Scott Wheeler pop on, and we're going to find out a little bit more about Rutger McGroarty before he joins us live on the program. And then lots for us to chop up with Mike McIntyre later on, Reem, as Mike's going to join us a little later than normal with such a packed schedule for today's program.
Yeah, trying to just bring it all in here. Greg just joined the room, so I will add him in. But no shortage of topics today with the NHL Free. This is such a fun week. The draft, free agency, so many people in chat. So I'm pretty fired up here.
It's great. By the way, everyone that's with us, if you haven't before, hit that red subscribe button. You know how the YouTubers work. Subscribe, let a friend know about it. And as I said, we'll talk a little bit more about the Jets picks with Scott Wheeler, and then Jet first rounder Rutger McGroarty coming up at the top of the hour. But before that, let's welcome in the Wishman, Greg Wyshynski from ESPN, less than 24 hours away from free agency. Wish, thanks so much for doing this. How are you? How'd you enjoy Montreal?
Oh, I enjoyed Montreal too much. I mean, it was.
How many dogs did you have? Did you put on a chestnut-like performance?
I think I might have. I averaged at least 3 a day. That's for sure. The lines would get bigger and bigger, so that kind of put me off of having too many. But I mean, it was just the best time. I mean, definitely drank and ate my way through the city. My lovely wife was up, so we hit some of the restaurants in town, and it was just a good time, man. Like the hockey media can be kind of high school-y sometimes, a little soap opera-y sometimes, as you know. And I feel like we all missed each other so much in the last couple of years that the Stanley Cup Finals and the draft, like everyone was just feeling really good and had good times, and it was good to see everybody again.
Oh my God, I wish we didn't have so much to talk about. I just go down that rabbit hole with the best beefs in the hockey media, and we could talk about that for an hour or so.
I mean, I'm at the center of at least half of them, so I mean, we could definitely hit a lot of them.
You know what? Just quickly, I mean, I don't want to spend too much time on the draft, but Montreal was hosting. They had a number 1 overall pick. Most people thought it was going to be Shane Wright. He dropped a 4. I mean, what were your memories of just the atmosphere and the excitement and getting, as the commissioner said, he was getting his ass booed on stage, a return to normalcy? I mean, it really did seem like a special night there in Montreal, and an exciting one as well.
Yeah, it's the perfect venue for the draft, not only because of the enthusiasm of the fans, but obviously also just the level of knowledge in the building too. I mean, when you would hear a kid who grew up in Quebec get drafted, the crowd reacted in kind, like they all know them. As far as the first overall pick goes, like I will never forget the sound that crowd made when most of them were anticipating, right? Slafkovsky ends up being the name. And you heard this sound that was a combination of like cheers and boos and gasps and WTFs and like everything at the same time in one moment. And, as a lot of people know, I'm a wrestling fan, and like the only comparison I could make is those moments in professional wrestling where, someone's music hits that you don't expect, and then the crowd just loses their mind. It was like one of those moments, and it was just magical. The whole first day was just some of the most fun you could have at the draft. Not only because of the crowd, but because of the unpredictability throughout the entire first round.
Well, speaking of the WWE theme, I mean, 2 things that stood out for me later on that night, Slafkovsky going through the crowd, basically like the biggest face in the company, high-fiving everyone on his way. And then from my perspective, the highlight of the entire weekend was Kevin Owens himself surprising Bruce Boudreau on the NHL set. That was an absolutely priceless moment, and just shows the reason why everyone loves Bruce Boudreau.
It really was, and to see Bruce in real time morph into a 12-year-old boy was incredible to watch. And just like, he gets all red-faced, he starts peppering Kevin Owens with questions like, "When are you coming back from injury? Are you going to be at SummerSlam?" And being like, "I'm going to call Vince McMahon myself if he doesn't give you the title." I think Vince might be a little busy these days. but you know,
Yeah.
it was just really, really fun to see someone who has fans, as Bruce Boudreau no doubtedly does, become a fan for someone else in that moment. It's not something we often get to see from people inside the NHL.
Greg, let's move on. And I guess before we get to free agency, what was your reaction yesterday to a number of pretty talented younger players not getting qualifying offers from their teams? I mean, I'll be honest, we were stunned here in Winnipeg that Evgeni Svechnikov didn't get one. And this is maybe a little different than a few of the others because it was still a relatively cheap number. And it'll be interesting to hear what Kevin Cheveldayoff has to say about that decision. Although in the past, they didn't qualify Joe Morrow and then ended up signing him. So I don't believe the door is closed.
Right.
But I mean, the likes of Dylan Strome, I mean, what's happening in Chicago is insane. Sonny Milano in Anaheim. I mean, are we now seeing more of the effects of the flat cap really wreak its toll on the middle lower class of the National Hockey League?
Well, we definitely are. I was talking to an agent earlier this week about what the landscape kind of looked like, and he said, "Look, the top guys are going to get their money. I think we've already seen that with Philip Forsberg and with Chris Letang. It's the middle class," he said, "that is going to get slammed." He called it a bloodbath. Is basically what we're going to see in the next couple of weeks, and I don't think he's necessarily wrong. The combination of a couple of factors, the flat cap being the primary one, where if the cap is only moving up by $1 million, you hear it all the time from the executives in the league that the arbitration process is still tied to a system that's pre-pandemic. And so you're seeing comparisons to salaries and things of that nature that existed before everyone had to kind of tighten their belts because of the salary cap. And so because of that system being a little bit out of sync, I think you're seeing teams get more aggressive with trying to get out of the arbitration system by not qualifying players. And then, of course, you do have some specific, unique situations each year. One in Chicago where they're just like stripping the thing down to the nuts and bolts at this point. It's like Taves, Kane, Jones, and cockroaches, I think, at this point in Chicago with the way that they've torn that thing down. And then you have, as you often do in each offseason, new general managers that come in. So Pat Verbeek in Anaheim has no tie whatsoever to Sonny Milano, doesn't know Sonny Milano from a hole in the wall. And so even though we watched him play really well for them and his analytics are strong, Verbeek might want the flexibility to kind of pay him what he believes he's worth versus what the arbitration system says he's worth.
Listen, you've got a great piece, and all fans should check it out at ESPN, sort of previewing free agency from every team's perspective. I don't want to miss getting to the Winnipeg Jets right away because they were quite a quiet team. I mean, they had a couple first-round selections. We're going to actually have Rutger McGroarty join us in about half an hour from now. Looking forward to that. But many of us were expecting a potential deal involving the captain, Blake Wheeler, and at minimum at some point this summer, at least one contract off the blue line going elsewhere to make room for the likes of Ville Heinola and Dylan Sandberg. Are you hearing anything about the Winnipeg Jets, and what intrigues you about their situation heading into tomorrow?
Yeah, well, like you have heard about the Wheeler thing about requesting a trade and wanting a change for himself at this point in his career. And, I don't know if it's competitive. I don't know if it's geographic. I've heard it could be a geographic thing. So if that's the case, it kind of limits the market. But, I have a feeling with Wheeler, it's probably one of those things where Kevin Cheveldayoff will probably, if he is exploring a deal, kind of see where the dust settles within this free agency period. See who lost out on Kane, see who lost out on Giroux, see who lost out on Perron now that's going to hit the market, and then kind of see who might need a veteran winger of some accomplishment in Blake Wheeler. The defenseman thing, there's one name that kind of stands out for me, and that's Brendan Dillon, for obvious reasons. Really good player. I think he's got trade value. And when you start to look at possibilities, two kind of stand out for you, and they're both where he used to play in California. The Los Angeles Kings, I think, are in need of a veteran defenseman. I think he would fit the bill there really well. And same thing with the Anaheim Ducks, who traded away Josh Manson and Hampus Lindholm at the deadline last year. I think they could probably use a veteran hand back there as some of their younger guys come into the lineup. So, you always like to get somebody who knows what the life is like when you're playing in California with road trips and all that such. And in Brendan Dillon, and then also another name to look out for those teams, Alec Martinez with the Vegas Golden Knights, I think certainly is somebody that they could keep an eye on in these situations.
Greg, I don't know. Maybe it's being from Winnipeg in the smallest market. I got a little bit of a soft spot for what's happened in Ottawa for the few years. You mentioned Vince McMahon. I mean, should Pierre Dorion be walking around with a Vince-style strut right now with the work that he's done the last little while? I mean, I have to tell you, what he was able to get Alex DeBrincat for, I think, dropped some jaws around the league. And even if they're not able to sign him, I'm not sure that at the deadline or next year, they're not able to get easily as much, if not more, for him at that point than what they gave up. And it sounds like they're very much in on Claude Giroux as well.
Yeah, I'm going to steal somebody's joke that I saw on Twitter, which is that Pierre Dorion should just keep trading with guys named Kyle. He's doing quite well in trading with guys named Kyle. The DeBrincat thing, I'm glad you brought up the trade value that he would have if you were going to flip him, because I think that is part of the equation and why the return was so good, insofar as what Ottawa gave up for him. I thought, a lot of the things that we were hearing about what DeBrincat could be traded for was related to him then, staying around and signing a long-term deal, making some sort of commitment to a team beyond the parameters of his contract. I don't think he quite has that in Ottawa, obviously. So the bounty they gave up for him, I think, is commensurate to what they don't know about his future in that market. That being said, it's still getting an asset that they could then turn around and really make a killing on at the trade deadline if things don't seem like they're going to progress towards the future with him. So that was a really solid move. Giroux there has been kind of predestined because of his history. He lived there as a teenager, played his junior hockey there. It's just a matter of whether or not he wants to be on a team that's on the way up, but still has some ways to go versus maybe playing in a place where he could, potentially finally win that cup. And then the Matt Murray trade was insanely great. I mean, like the idea that he was able to move Murray and not have to retain 50% on the salary and get him off the cap and get back what he got back for him is astounding. Like it just goes to show the desperation that teams have in the goalie market when you start to see the carousel spin a little bit. And then it also goes to show that Kyle Dubas can't help himself when it comes to acquiring former Sioux Greyhounds, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm one to try to point out a lot of the smark and cynicism all the time amongst hockey Twitter. I think it was 100% deserved last night after that Lee Sens trade. I mean, I still can't really wrap my head around it. I guess this brings us
I'll defend the Murray thing for a little. Like, there are folks in the analytics community that believe that he is much better than his numbers would indicate. The Leafs have always been analytics forward. I guarantee you they have some numbers that we don't have publicly that tell them that Murray was an improved goalie last year. And, they have within their system the goaltending coach that was there in the Sioux when Murray was there with Dubas and Keefe. So, like, it's a different kind of landing spot for Murray than Ottawa was. There seems to be some improvement in his game. I think the problem for me on this is that we don't know who that other guy is going to be. And right now it feels very much like you've gone out and gotten Peter Mrazek Volume 2, a guy that is streaky and injury prone, and we don't know who the other person is going to be in case this person can't do the job. And that's the real problem for the Leafs right now.
The thing that stands out to me is that reportedly the number that they're going to be paying Matt Murray isn't much different than what Jack Campbell's asking for on the open market. I mean, are they better at goaltender with Matt Murray instead of Jack Campbell? I have a hard time making that argument right now. Well,
that's a real good question. And I think that when we get to the end of this process, it's one that Kyle Dubas is going to have to answer. Campbell's very solid, but there has been this school of thought that said the team in front of him plays so well that all he needs to do is be competent. And so if you can get that level of competence from Matt Murray, then maybe you've made yourself a decent deal and not had to commit the years that they would have had to commit to Campbell. That's the other thing about Campbell. Like right now, the rumor is that there's a 5-over-5 deal on the table for him, probably from Edmonton. And so maybe they don't want to go 5 years with Campbell or any goalie. And if that's the case, then maybe they've made themselves a smarter decision. It remains to be seen.
Greg Wyshynski of ESPN with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Well, let's quickly look ahead to tomorrow. I mean, top 3 guys on the board on most lists. Johnny Gaudreau, Nazem Kadri, and we'll move in Evander Kane in that mix as well. Prediction time. Where do you think those three guys end up?
Well, I'm starting to feel more like Gaudreau to Philly now that they're starting to clear out a little space. That's always seemed like it could be the thing that happens. But I'll say this. I mean, Calgary, when they said they were going to move heaven and earth to sign this guy, they weren't lying. Like, the money they're throwing at him is significant. The contracts they've given him on the table are real. They really believe they've got a chance to retain him. So I'm not going to say that they're out of it. The one thing at the draft that really struck me was the sort of optimism and enthusiasm that Brad Treliving had with regard to these negotiations. Now, we might be talking a completely different story by midnight tonight. We'll see. But I mean, I'd say 50-50 right now that he stays or goes, which is not where I would have thought I would be maybe 2 weeks ago. Kadri is a really interesting one because I think Nazem's going to have a chance to play for some teams that are legit contenders. I bet the Rangers are in on him. I think Boston's situation with Krejci coming back might be a little different than it was maybe a month ago. But he's also going to have the opportunity, I think, to really make some money and play in a couple places that aren't necessarily close to contention. I would keep Seattle in mind for the situation where they could make him the number one center and then allow Beniers and Shane Wright a little bit more time to mature. And then Evander Kane, I'll give Ken Holland credit, man. Like, he might be playing this right. And the way he's playing it is, I'm going to put my money on the table. I'm going to let him know where we are. I'm going to let him know what our cap flexibility is. He can go out and find greener grass, and it is green enough where he wants to go and play in this place, by all means. If not, we'll be here for him, and he can spend the next 4 to 5 years, taking passes from Connor McDavid. And so I think that's the right way to play it. You don't blow out your salary structure to keep this guy around based on not only, the market, but also his past history. If somebody else wants to commit long-term with the money he's looking for, so be it. If not, we're going to be here to catch the apple when it falls from the tree. I think it's a really smart way to play it for Ken Holland.
Greg, you hearing anything about a couple former Jets that are hitting UFA tomorrow? Andrew Copp, most notably, who had that great playoff run in New York, and Paul Stastny, who we've heard is rumored that wants to be going to a contender, but haven't really heard him tied to any teams at this point.
I think whoever gets Stastny is going to be doing themselves a favor, man. I've always been a huge fan of him as a guy in the room, as a competitor. As Winnipeg fans saw this past year, the ability to play up and down the lineup. Copp's the same way. They're kind of similar in that sense that you can cast them in several different roles and they're going to excel no matter what you ask of them. So in either case, whoever gets either of those guys is going to do really well for themselves. Copp's a surprise, though. I spent a lot of time around the Rangers, and the thought was if they let Ryan Strome go, it was going to be Andrew Copp's spot. And so to have that not have worked out the way it did, or the way it was predicted, is kind of a surprise, and it makes you wonder whether or not the Rangers have something else cooking at the center spot beyond those guys.
That was, we were just looking at some odds. I was doing the your pal Dustin Nielsen. We do a betting show together, the Lock Shop, and we were looking at some of the free agency odds. And Kadri, right now, the two favorites to sign him at plus 150 are the New York Rangers and the Detroit Red Wings. This is the first time we've heard the Red Wings being in on top free agents in a while. Is this sort of the time where they now take a big step forward after the great young players that we saw blossom last year?
Yeah, for sure. And they're right. And in that, maturation curve where you can start going out and getting guys like Kadri who are going to be good for you now. They need to start contending a little bit, giving these young guys a taste of it. And then once those guys are mature, he's still going to be a solid player for you on like the second or third year of his contract and be able to help push you into contention. So yeah, I think the problem is there's like two teams where you are not getting a single shred of relevant information from those rooms. One of them's Detroit, the other one's on Long Island. So it's really hard to figure out what that's going to end up looking like. But like I said, I think Seattle and Detroit are two teams to really watch in the next couple of days that could make a huge splash, even though from the outside looking in, they're not necessarily as close to contention as some of the other teams that might have money for a guy like Kadri, or another player to look for, John Klingberg, for example, who I think could go to a place like Carolina that has the want and the need for a puck-moving defenseman, or he could reunite with his friend Jamie Alexiak in Seattle and potentially go there for a few years because they need a veteran puck-moving defenseman.
Wish, always love having you on the program. Thanks so much. Quickly tee up what you and the ESPN team have coming up tomorrow.
Yeah, so for anybody watching the States, the free agent frenzy coverage will be on ESPN Plus. Buccigross, Kevin Weeks taking videos from wherever the hell he's taking videos from.
The People's Insider.
Rick DiPietro is going to be there. Brian Boucher is going to be there. And then myself and Kristen Shilton and Emily Kaplan, I believe, are going to be more on the writing side tomorrow. So it's going to be fun. It's one of the more wilder couple of days leading up to the frenzy that I can remember, which means I think we're going to see a lot of surprises and fireworks in the next couple of days as well.
Appreciate your time, pal. Have a great one tomorrow and great summer.
Oh, man, thanks. Really appreciate you guys having me on again, and we'll see you soon.
You got it. There it is. Greg Wyshynski. Give him a follow on Twitter at Wyshynski and check out all of his fine work along with the ESPN team over at ESPN and ESPN.com. All right, we're keeping a fast pace to the show. Rutger McGroarty coming up a little bit later on. Mike McIntyre as well. But we are going to get back to the Jets draft. Just before we do that, I want to give a big thanks to Culligan Water. 65 years in the biz as the water experts here in the PEG. Softers, filters, coolers, systems, whole home systems, drinking water systems, citywide water delivery services as commercial and industrial water products and solutions. 1200 Sargent Avenue, and hit them up online at drinkculligan.com. And we will raise a little brown jug for the Jets picks in the first round and do that with Scott Wheeler right now. Of course, don't forget the new Folkfest Lager is available. Lots of people enjoying it and a great turnout at the Folkfest on the weekend. You can try it for yourself down at the tap room on William Avenue. Check out all the great little brown jug beers. And of course, you can also order online for home delivery at littlebrownjug.ca. All right, let's welcome in Scott Wheeler from The Athletic. Scott, what a wild weekend in Montreal, or I guess technically Thursday, Friday. When we spoke with you before, as well as a number of people in the prospect game, the one thing that was seemingly agreed upon is that no one could agree on anything. What did you think of the first round overall? And were you as surprised as many fans were, especially the way the top picks shook out with Shane Wright falling to number 4?
If I'm being honest, I wasn't super surprised. It was the most common question I got from my colleagues while we were in town. There was a huge group of us in town from The Athletic. There must have been 70 or 80 of us in Montreal for the draft. And we got together a couple of times in advance of the draft. And the most common question was, who do you think is going to go number 1? And throughout the week, I was giving the answer of Juraj Slafkovsky to those questions. So that piece of it did feel like it switched. It felt like a couple of weeks in advance of the draft, that had kind of become the maybe not the foregone conclusion, but certainly the more likely of the two choices. So once that pivot did happen, because if you'd asked me that question a month ago, I would have said Shane Wright would go number 1. But once that pivot did happen, you kind of knew that things were going to look a little bit funky, a little bit different after Slafkovsky went off the board, just because Arizona was likely locked in on Logan Cooley, and things were hairy as to what the New Jersey Devils were going to do. So didn't completely shock me, but it still made for a lot of fun. This was the most, as far as I'm concerned, the most fun I've had covering the draft. This was my 9th draft, I believe. And this was as good as it gets. I think the draft has been a little underwhelming in years past, just in terms of movement and trades and all of that. And between the DeBrincat trade before the draft even got started, you go right down the list. There were a lot of talking points, and the way that everything kind of played out was a lot of fun. So pretty much as good as you could ask for, if you're asking me.
Speaking of a lot of fun, the Jets' first-round selection, Rutger McGroarty, seems like a lot of fun. We're going to have him jumping on the program in a few minutes for the first time here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. It's funny, reading your reports in The Athletic about the draft, it seems like the Jets keep taking the guys that you're most enamored with in the interview process, both on the ice and off the ice. What are the Jets getting in their 14th selection?
Well, you guys are going to love your chat with Rutger. Rutger was a lot like Cole Perfetti and Chaz Lucius in their draft years. Probably my favorite interview in this draft. I speak with the vast majority of the top 60, 70 kids over the course of the season. And he was one that just really stood out to me. He's got a ton of life and energy to him. It's no surprise that he was the captain of the National Development Program team this year. Just one of those kids who just has an energy and a spirit about him that I think will really endear himself to fans. And then on top of that, the player is a fabulous player as well. Rutger is a very strong, athletic kid, kind of a broad-shouldered kid, but can really shoot the puck, can handle the puck. A very intelligent player in terms of how he gets open, the spacing that he takes, and how he sort of uses space and finds pockets of space, if you will, inside the offensive zone to get open into. So just a really well-rounded player. The one thing, and I'm sure he would tell you this, the one thing he wants to work on is his skating. That's been the talking point of the last couple of years. But everything else is there: the work ethic, the shot, the way he reads and understands the play. And he very much plays to his strengths when he's out there and knows how to get the most out of his game. So big fan of Rutger, not just the kid, but also the player. And you guys are going to really enjoy speaking to him.
We always spend so much time around draft time talking about, the basics, the genuine talent of players. And it seems like he does have plenty of talents, but a lot of the things that he also, and I think part of the reason why the Jets fell in love with him, were more intangibles. I mean, you talk about that leadership quality, and you talk about the energy that he brings. And frankly, that was something that was really lacking here in Winnipeg last year. Not suggesting he's going to turn it around this year or even play with the club, but you understood why they did that. And he said he modeled his games around the Tkachuks. And there's some of that Tkachuk energy from a guy like that, which of course, when they're on your team, you hate their guts, but every team wants a guy that brings that to the table.
Yeah, I don't think he's a pest per se. I don't think he has that sort of mean streak that a Matthew Tkachuk has or that a Brad Marchand has in terms of the way that they get under people's skins, but very much a chatty guy on the ice. He plays hard. He finishes all of his checks. He's physical along the wall. He's sturdy over his skates, which makes sort of knocking him off the puck a tall task. So there is a lot of that to him. He's only 6 feet tall, but you'll see, I mean, you may even see it on video when you're talking to him, but a very sort of stocky, strong kid as well. So there's definitely some of that to him, certainly in terms of the interviews and the way he speaks and how sort of vibrant his personality is. I can see the Tkachuk comparisons, but I wouldn't call him a sort of pest or a shit disturber, if you will. That's just not really the sort of bread and butter of his game.
Well, Scott Rutger, who's going to join us shortly, was only one of 2 first-round picks. And shout out to the Rangers for making it to the conference finals and turning that second rounder into a first for Winnipeg. Gave us a lot more to talk about. And for the Jets, they get Brad Lambert. And if you can, I mean, I think a lot of people would be interested to hear. I mean, you've covered this draft game for a long time. I mean, the rise and fall of Brad Lambert. And are the Jets fortunate that a guy like this fell to them at 30, or are they taking a real risk on a guy that, the stock certainly wasn't on draft day what it was at the start of the year or the year before?
I don't think there's any more risk in taking a Brad Lambert where they did relative to any of the other players that were available. If there isn't risk associated with you at 30th in the draft, then you're doing something wrong, right? Or you're doing something right and something's gone wrong at the draft. That's kind of a non sequitur. It almost never happens where a player is available at 30 who doesn't come with some risk. So I love the bet on Brad Lambert. As you mentioned, he's been around a long time. Really, in this draft class, the 2 players who've been on the scene the longest are him and Shane Wright. We've been talking about Brad Lambert since he was 14 years old. He signed a Liga contract, believe it or not, when he was 15. So this is a kid that has been playing hockey at a high level and been ahead of his age group and been a top producer playing ahead of his age group for a long, long time. And as a result, I think there was inevitably some sort of nitpicking that happened, a lot like happened with Shane Wright, frankly, and a lot like happened with Jacob Chychrun in his draft year. These kids that are around a long time that scouts have been watching for years, it becomes easy to, when you're extremely familiar with them, it becomes easy to look for faults, look for new things to question. And that's different than it is with the shiny new toy who bursts onto the scene and has a big draft year and he's sort of lighting it up. And Brad just wasn't that kind of a kid. He didn't have that kind of an opportunity, in part because of injuries and illness. He was both sick and injured out of the gate, and it kind of derailed the start of his season. Then he makes a move from one organization to another, returns to the Pelicans, which is the team he kind of came up with, and things don't go well for him there either. So a little bit of a weird season for him, definitely a disappointing one. He'd be the first to tell you that. He told me that when we spoke in advance of the draft, and I did a sort of extended Q&A with him. And I think ultimately with Brad, you're going to have to hit reset. And I think that'll be good for him. By all accounts, I expect that he'll come over here and play for Seattle in the WHL. The Seattle Thunderbirds are expected to push again for a WHL title. They were WHL finalists this year, despite having lost many of their veterans because of guys like potentially Brad Lambert and Kevin Korchinski and Jordan Gustafson. They're still going to be a top team next year. And I think he can put up 100 points in WHL. I think he's capable of that. And that will be a good thing for him, just to sort of get his confidence sort of built back up and get him to where he needs to be. Because on skill and skating, those two things in particular grade out top 5 in this draft, especially the skating. The skating might be 1 or 2 in this draft. So he's got a lot to fall back on, and now it's just about sort of rebuilding him. And I think that the Jets are an organization that's well positioned to do that. And I would actually argue that he actually kind of reminds me a little bit of what Nick Ehlers looked like in his draft year, just in terms of the way that he skates out there and how he operates and how he's very puck reliant. At that age, Nick Ehlers sort of really needed to have touches to be a good player. So a lot at play with Brad, but I think ultimately if he puts it all together, he'll be just fine.
All right, Scott, listen, quickly before we go, and we just hit the 2 first rounders, and as I mentioned, Rutger McGroarty is going to join us in just a couple minutes. Give us a quick 4-1-1 on their second round selection, Elias Salmonson and Danny Zhilkin, who went in the 3rd round, a player that many people had ranked far higher than where the Jets ended up taking him off the board.
Yeah, Salmonson's a really interesting player. Salmonson is another player like Brad Lambert that we've been watching for quite some time. Salmonson was a projected sort of late first round pick heading into this year. He had played up at the J20 level as a 16-year-old and had played quite well, kind of a point per game defenseman at that level. And then from there, everything just kind of didn't fall into place for him this year. It wasn't a sort of picture perfect year. He was good at the junior level, but he wasn't the best defenseman in the league at the J20 level. And then when he played pro, he sort of came and went from the professional ranks, and it just didn't really stick for him. So I liked him at 55. Salmonson's got a really hard point shot. He defends really well. He's been a staple of the Swedish national program, will continue to be involved with them through the World Junior program and all of that. So a very well-rounded, sort of impressive player. The decision-making has been a little suspect with him at times, and I think that's ultimately what sort of slipped him out of the late first and into the late second. But a kid with a lot of tools to work with. And then Zhilkin's a fascinating one. Another kid who's been around a long time. This was actually his 3rd year of eligibility for the OHL. He's a late 2003 rather than a 2004, so he actually played at last year's U18 Worlds instead of this year's U18 Worlds. Very athletic kid, skates like a professional already, can shoot it and handle it like a professional. He got very high grades in my survey of NHL scouts in advance of the draft for his hands and his skating and his shot. He's also a very reliable defensive player. He actually played defense for Guelph a couple of times this season, which speaks to how much trust that they had in him when they were short on D to put him on the back end. But just a pro-built center, not going to be a star, but there's a real good chance, I think, that Danny becomes a 2nd or 3rd line center in the NHL, probably more likely a 3rd line center in the NHL. So all 4 of those kids, I mean, we talked about Rutger at length, and I'm a big fan, but Brad, Elias, Danny, all 4 of those kids, I think, have a real shot, and I think they did well with those 4 selections.
Scott, thanks so much for doing this. We always appreciate you jumping on, and we'll great to get that sort of info on all the picks, and we're going to talk to the guy that went first off the board for Winnipeg right away. Thanks so much for doing this. Have a great summer, and we look forward to your next visit to WST.
Thanks as always, buddy.
Appreciate it. There it is, Scott Wheeler of The Athletic, and we're not going to wait any time. We just talked about the Jets draft selections, and now it's an absolute pleasure for the first time on Winnipeg Sports Talk to welcome the Jets' first pick in the first round, 14th overall, the pride of Lincoln, Nebraska, Rutger McGroarty joining us now. Rutger, what's up, man? Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk. It's great to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's awesome. I'm pumped.
The hat looks good on you. You still got a big smile. I mean, you're still on a high from last Thursday night in Montreal.
Yeah, I thank you. Yeah, I'm still pretty fired up. I couldn't have gone any better, and yeah, I'm excited.
I want to ask you a little bit more about, your background. because you come from a pretty unique hockey market, if you will. But let's first talk about the time leading up to the draft. What was it like for you? Combine, interviews, and fill us in on the nerves of what a first-round prospect goes through while you're watching a few other guys get picked and not knowing who's going to call your name.
Yeah. So I'll start with the combine. The combine was awesome. It was a fun experience. I mean, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. So just going there and enjoying the moment, seeing that's your first time really being with all the top prospects. So that was a lot of fun. And then leading up to the draft, I mean, pretty much all you can do is just train and get ready for next year. And for me, get ready for World Junior Camp. So, I mean, you can't play any more games. You can't impress anybody else. So for me, it was just kind of some nerves leading up to the draft. But then leading up to draft week, I feel like that's when I really just want to enjoy the moment and just have exciting feelings towards it.
Well, I got to tell you, there is a ton of love from Jet fans in the chat right now. For those of you, they all think you look great in that hat. What was it like hearing your name called by Winnipeg? Did you have an inkling that the Jets were interested in you? And what was it like getting up onto that stage, shaking the hands of Gary Bettman and seeing the team that is kind of investing in your future as an NHLer?
First off, thanks, guys. I'm excited to be a part. I'm excited to be a Jet. And then for me, I met with Winnipeg. I think it was twice, and we had really good talks. And it was definitely some good talks. And I feel like when I heard my name selected by such a great organization, I feel like I kind of just blacked out, and I was just trying not to fall down the stairs. A couple of my teammates hugged me and just said congratulations, and then shaking Gary Bettman's hand was definitely pretty exciting for me. That was really cool. And then the organization, everybody seemed pretty fired up to have me. So I'm really excited.
Your crew was rolling pretty deep in Montreal there. I mean, you mentioned you had some family, 95 others. Well, tell us about the rest of the evening. I'm sure you had a lot of handshakes and high fives and hugs and photos. Was it as fun as it looked like you were having?
Yeah, it was definitely a fun time. I mean, having all those people there just shows how many people care for me, and I really appreciate them. And that was really exciting to hear the cheers when my name got selected. And but I love my family and friends, and I really appreciate them for showing up.
Now, I want to ask a little bit more about them and your hockey background, but just to finish off the Thursday night, you were the first of two picks. The Jets took Brad Lambert. You've had some funny interactions with him on social media so far. Had you know much about him? Had you played against him before? And I'm sure you've got a chance to meet him and talk to him a little bit since you guys both went off the board in the first round for Winnipeg.
So a funny story, actually, at the combine, I felt like I saw Brad maybe 20 times, because once you're waiting for your interview, like you sit outside of the team's room. So I would walk past and I would see Brad and I'd, hey, how you doing? And then he would walk past me, and then him and I just started laughing about it. And like, holy, like we keep seeing each other. So that's kind of where he was like, oh, it's meant to be. Like that's what's meant to be. So yeah.
He, obviously a very different story. I mean, a guy with some Canadian roots, but he was the Finnish guy that grew up with the Canadian name in Finland. But I mean, you're from a place that, frankly, is not synonymous with hockey. I'm really interested in your story, how you got started in the game right now. Fill us in a little bit about your background and the start of your hockey journey from Lincoln, Nebraska, of all places. We kind of think of corn and college football, not as much NHL players.
So I think I commented about this at the draft, but I went to a hockey game when I was 3 days old.
Starting them early.
Yeah, I was born on a Tuesday, and then I went to a playoff hockey game on a Friday. So I was really born into it, but I have no regrets. I love the game, and but with Nebraska, I feel like that definitely shaped me who I am. It's just a super down to earth, great place. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Winnipeg, just the great people, and it's just a close knit community. And but I feel like Nebraska. There's only 2 hockey rinks, and but my dad had the key to the ice rink with him being the head coach of the Lincoln Stars. So I was in the Lincoln Stars locker.
Michigan, and then part of that U.S. national development team. I mean, a great opportunity. I think that program speaks for itself. The number of young men we're hearing called in the first round year after year. You also had the honor of being the captain of that team. I mean, fill us in on your time with the U.S. program and how you grew to be the captain and the experience that you've already had there before heading off to college.
So NTDP was unbelievable for me. I mean, wearing your country's colors every single day, it's definitely exciting, and you can't take it for granted. And then being the captain, I feel like that was definitely shows a lot of respect for my teammates, and I was really happy to wear the C for my team. But for me, it really didn't change anything for me. It's just because I had a letter on my jersey doesn't mean I have authority over anyone or whatever it is. I just attack the day every single day with that that energy that I like to bring. And but NTDP going up against NCAA teams, whatever it is, international play, USHL, I felt like it was a great competition, and I loved every second of it.
Now, you're obviously planning on heading off to college, which, is a dream of so many, and in some ways sort of following in the footsteps of a number of former Jets first rounders that ended up, having that exact that path from the USNBP to the NCAA. What's next for you right now? The Jets haven't had a development camp. I mean, fill us in on the summer. Are you in the mix? Are you planning on World Juniors, or is college and school calling before then?
So I have World Junior Camp coming up in, I think it's 12 days. So I'm just really trying to get dialed in for that. And then, so that's just like the summer showcase. It's like the tryout. And then after that, it's just getting ready for Michigan. I want to try and make it out to Winnipeg for a weekend, whatever it is, meet the fans, just get in the community. I would love that. But for me this summer, it's just really just in the weight room, hitting it hard, getting faster, getting stronger. And then on the ice, just working on the little things.
I'd imagine that, with that straight shot up I-29, we might have some of that crew that was in Montreal making their way to Canada Life Center in the future.
Oh, yeah. You'll definitely see them.
I'll probably hear them too. I'm looking forward to it. Hey, listen, for fans, I mean, obviously we've got a chance, over the course of people that watch the draft. I mean, you get to see highlights of players, but it's not like the majority of fans have, watched you play before. I mean, tell us a little bit about what you bring as a player, both on and off the ice as a teammate to the Jets organization, Rutger.
So for me, I feel like I'm a skilled power forward that likes to play both ends of the ice. I feel like I bring my energy every single day. And then I feel like I get a good goal scorer's touch as well. I feel like I can put the puck in the back of the net, and I make my line mates around me better. And then I feel like in the locker room, with me wearing the C, I feel like I'm a good leader. And a big part of that's just that competitiveness, that energy on a Monday where no one has really any energy. I'm coming in with a smile on my face. I'm messing around with the guys. I'm just bringing energy into the rink. And then in the weight room, I hit it hard. I like to stay quiet in the weight room, but I just go in there, do my thing. And I feel like I'm a super approachable guy as well. I feel like if someone's struggling, they can come talk to me. I feel like there was a lot of teammates that came to talk to me over the past 2 years. And if they're struggling on the ice, off the ice, whatever it is, go golfing with them, eat lunch with them, whatever it is, just help them out.
Now, you've also said that you sort of patterned your game after the Tkachuks. Now, of course, everyone hates the Tkachuks when they're on the other team, but we remember the old man starting here in Winnipeg and scoring 50 for the Jets. And I think everyone would love to have one of those types of players on their team. Do you know those guys well, or were they just sort of the standard from the program that you just came from, and guys that you really wanted to model yourself after eventually when you get to the pros?
So when I really started to model my game after him was Brady Tkachuk. Before he signed, he practiced with my team for like a month and a half. And so every single day I'm practicing with him, and I see that that energy, and I feel like he's got really good skill. He can put the puck in the back of the net. And I just felt like as I started practicing with him more, I felt like I really play like this guy. And I feel like it's someone that I can definitely look up to as a role model and model my game after.
Now, I believe, did you play with Chaz Lucius as well with the under 18 program at one time?
I got called up at the end of my 17 year, and I played with him.
Now, of course, he's another first round pick with the Jets. And Like, I don't know. I haven't seen the schedule. I'm not sure how this works, but these Michigan-Minnesota games next year, or whenever you guys do play, are going to be, I mean, incredible from a hockey standpoint with all the talent. But I imagine that Winnipeg Jet fans will be particularly interested because of some of the top picks that'll be in those games.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really looking forward to it. And I got a couple teammates around my team last year too that are playing for Minnesota. So I feel like those will definitely be some competitive battles.
Have you thought at all? I mean, as far as the goal, I mean, first things first, hear your name called. It's been done. I mean, the Jets will talk to you about, what they're hoping you do. Go into, you're looking to get out of school as fast as possible and get into the pros, or is it more? I know it's cliche, but one season at a time, one game at a time, and step by step to make yourself the best player you can be.
Yeah. So for me, this is a question that I got a lot at the combine. I feel like since the Winnipeg Jets drafted me, I feel like we're going to have great communication. The communication's been great so far as well, just with the development plan, just everything. And so there'll be a lot of communication. I definitely want to stay either 1 or 2 years. I feel like that's my main goal is 1 or 2 years. But I feel like we'll have good communication and we'll definitely know when the right time is.
Yeah, of course. And Chaz did sign with the Jets last year, so we won't be going head to head. But I'm sure folks, especially with the excitement that you've brought to the organization, if you're going to do the same thing and jumped on next year, it would be a good thing. Hey, just before we go, obviously we're talking a lot about hockey, and you're a first-round draft pick, and this is a show where we talk about hockey. But I'm interested to know, like, what makes you tick off the ice? I mean, when you're not tied up in hockey or training, how do you enjoy yourself? What do you do? And what would fans be interested to know about you that has nothing to do with hockey?
For me, I feel like one thing is definitely I take pride in being a family guy. I feel like I actually moved up to Michigan when I was 10 years old to play for Detroit Honeybake. So I was up here for 7 or 8 months out of the year, and I moved up with my dad, and my mom and sister stayed in Nebraska. So I feel like we definitely missed out on a lot of family time. And with my family officially moving up at the beginning of my U17 year, we just really cherish our family time and love, if it's family game night or watching a movie on the couch, whatever it is, I like hanging out with them. And then besides that, I feel like I just love getting out. I love hanging out with people. I just love being around people. And that's what makes me click.
You get to Cornhuskers games. Did you kind of grow up with the red and white of Nebraska?
Yeah, Memorial Stadium. It's definitely one of a kind, and I love going to those Cornhusker games. And yeah, it was definitely an exciting time.
That being said, the Maize and Blue in the Big House knows how to put on a football game as well. I mean, how excited you are just for being a young man, moving on from where you're to this next level of, no matter how long at this point the NCAA experience is, I imagine probably some butterflies, but a lot of real genuine excitement to get out there and be a part of a historic program.
Yeah, I'm definitely fired up. That's also one of the reasons why I picked Michigan. I feel like it's such a historic program, and you see how many NHLers that they've produced over the years, and they just know how to coach those type of guys. And yeah, I'm really excited. I feel like we got a good competitive bunch going in.
Hey, it just, as far as the Jets go, I mean, we mentioned that there's no development camp this year. It's a little bit of a wrinkle as opposed to previous years, but I think it has to do with the number of factors, a number of picks, guys that are planning on going to camps like you. Have you talked to, is it Jimmy Roy? Is it Mike Keane so far? I mean, the development group, and tell us a little bit about just the interaction from the guys in player development and what they've had to say to you and kind of what that plan is for you under the guidance of the Jets on your way to Michigan.
Yeah, so I talked to both of them. I actually, right after the draft, we started talking about plan, and right now it's just getting ready. Just keep going, keep doing what I'm doing. I'm on the right path, and actually everyone in the Jets organization is extremely helpful, and it's been great talking to every single one of them. I feel like we both are just really excited, and I feel like my development being at the University of Michigan, it's going to keep getting better and better and better. So yeah, we're both really excited.
Hey, one of the other things that you had mentioned when you got drafted, I mean, when you were talking about as a player, the one thing you're looking to continually improve is the skating. I don't think you could have hit a bigger home run with your skating coach in Barb Underhill. How did that come together, and what's it been like? How's it helped you?
Yeah, so Barb, her and I have a really good relationship, and I think we both enjoy working with each other, and she sees a lot of potential in my skating. So actually, my agency, CAA, Jim Hughes is a part of CAA, and he's really good friends with Barb Underhill. So he was like, hey, I need a favor, and I want you to work with this kid. And so from the very first time we were on the ice together, we definitely had the right connection and right emotions of getting my skating better. And so her and I are really hitting it hard, and we can't wait to see where it is in a couple of years.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm just telling you from the comments here in the chat, we have not had someone that's sort of brought the energy and energized this fan base for a while like yourself. There is, tons of excitement about what you can do. And I think also not just bringing what you bring on the ice, but also the personality. It'll be a great addition to not just the hockey team and the dressing room, but I think the sports community here and a team that absolutely loves and lives and breathes the Winnipeg Jets. So if you wanted a hockey market, my friend, you're coming to it. And I know people will be paying close attention to you throughout this summer and next season. And we just wish you all the best. And this has been a lot of fun talking to you. Hopefully we can have you on as well quite often in the future as you get closer to starting and hopefully have a long, prosperous career right here in the Peg.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. It means a lot. I'm super excited to be a part of the Jets organization.
Have a great rest of the summer, Rutger, and we'll always have an open spot for you on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Have a great one.
Thank you. It means a lot. Thank you.
Beauty. There it is. Jets first round pick, Rutger McGroarty, joining us on Winnipeg Sports Talk. What a breath of fresh air that young man is. And just seeing all of these comments in the chat right now. I mean, for everyone that's with us for everyone that's with us live, I mean, this is exactly the sort of excitement that I think a lot of people felt, even though if they weren't sure about the player that the Jets selected in the first round. And he certainly came as advertised. That is a lot of energy and a lot of positivity. And that's, I think, exactly what, he brings to this team and organization whenever he gets here. I can tell you in that locker room and off the ice, he'll be a great addition. And if he can be half the player that he seems to be as a person, the Jets got a real good one. Big thanks to Rutger McGroarty joining us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. All right, Mike McIntyre is going to jump on in just a second with us. Before we do that, one guy that doesn't need a battery, it seems, is Rutger McGroarty. Everybody else, though, Donnie and the gang at Manitoba Battery have you covered. They are, of course, the home of the $99 Deep Cycle battery and the place where, regardless of what battery you're looking for, the place where you'll get the best price in town, you'll shop local, and you'll save big money. Don't waste your time at Canadian Tire or Costco or the big box stores. Donnie's got the best trained staff with the best products at the best prices in town. Pop on down and learn more at Manitoba Battery or go visit the team in the coolest JetBlue building in Winnipeg at 1026 Logan Avenue, open 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. daily. I will say this, Royal Sports, of course, is the capital for all of your favorite merchandise for your favorite team. An incredible selection of Winnipeg Jets gear. And I can tell you one thing from reading the chat right now after Rutger McGroarty just joined us, there will be a run on McGroarty jerseys once people find out what number he is for the Winnipeg Jets when he finally gets here. But whatever you need when it comes to merch, Royals got you covered. And of course, when it comes to dominating summer, bikes, soccer, softball, baseball, and so much more, the biggest hockey section in town, and cool stuff like tennis and disc golf, Royal Sports is the spot. 750 Pembina Highway. And make sure to follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. Big shout out to our friends at Not Auto Corp. Of course, if you're looking for a new vehicle before you do anything, pop on down to Waverly and McGillivray and check out the amazing vehicles they've got on the lot. Why not get into the car of your dreams at a great price with the help of the Not team? They've got it all. And if you are thinking about electric, a number of Teslas, they've been the Tesla leader in Winnipeg for a number of years. Got a great program to teach you everything you need to know about a potential switch to electric with the Tesla program, Tesla Experience program. Find out more online at not.ca or down at Waverly and McGillivray. And hey, we had a lot of fun talking about the vanilla of the Blue Bombers. I know many of you probably pop by Nick and Nicky DQ. No better spot to get vanilla soft serve than DQ. And of course, you can mix in all those tasty treats to make an amazing blizzard. My personal favorite right now, the Reese's Pieces Cookie Dough Blizzard. You heard that right. Now there for a limited time option, limited time only. And while you're at it, check out those amazing stack burgers as well. Nick and Nicky DQ, DQ Northgate, DQ Niverville, DQ Polo Park, DQ St. Anne's, all three Winnipeg locations available on your delivery apps. and hit them up online at DQ Manitoba for custom-made cakes for your next event. All right, let's get Mike McIntyre in here. This has been a really fast-paced show. Great stuff with Greg Wyshynski, Scott Wheeler on the draft, Rutger McGroarty, and now our cleanup hitter, Mike McIntyre, coming out of the on-deck circle to join us now. What's going on, boss? How are you?
I'm doing well, just getting warmed up here, getting the swing.
Well, let's swing for the fences. You got a tough act to follow after Rutger McGroarty just joined us. What a breath of fresh air he is.
Yeah, it's like hitting fourth after like Vlad Jr. in the Jays lineup, because that's a pretty good three spot that you had. I got to meet Rutger last week, of course, in Montreal, and he just he impresses immediately. The personality kind of jumps off the page, and you can see why this is a guy, Huss, who's been, I believe it's 5 different teams that he's been the captain of. He's basically been the captain of like every hockey team he's played for, because he just oozes leadership. And, you can see, knowing what we know about the Jets and True North and, the type that they have, you can see why a Rutger McGroarty probably shot up their list once they interviewed him at the Combine, and combine that with the way he plays. And Jets fans should love the fact that he models his game after the Tkachuk brothers. The Jets would love to have a Tkachuk type in their lineup, and they just might get that in a couple of years. Great kid, great character, and glad your audience got to get introduced to him as well.
We often say that the Jets are looking at best player available, like most teams. It's a talent. I mean, it's a crapshoot. These guys are young. But I will offer that the Jets were absolutely drafting for need in getting a player like that, because every team needs that sort of energy and spirit, not to mention the package that he brings on the ice. And it's pretty easy to imagine the sort of player and what he'll bring whenever he ends up making the jump to the National Hockey League.
For sure, Huss. And, Jets would never admit this or tell us. I got to think that they probably had a list. And I'm guessing like Connor Geekie would have been on that list, because he plays that way as well, a big body, that physical element as well. And obviously Geekie went a couple picks earlier. But I got to think, so Rutger McGroarty may not have been the choice if say Geekie was still available, but I got to think he was close to the next best choice, and they're going to be pretty happy with Plan B. They've had to do that a lot this summer, haven't they? They did that on the coaching front, and I know the organization certainly is happy to have Rick Bowness in the fold. Rutger McGroarty, the type of player he is something the Jets certainly need. When you look at their last couple first rounders, Cole Perfetti, Chaz Lucius, different kind of players than a Rutger McGroarty. And so I think, when you look and even what they got in Brad Lambert as the second first round pick, the Jets have added some really interesting elements to their prospect pool. And that's what you want, right? You want some variety. And the hope is that, in a couple of years from now, when some of these kids hopefully pan out, you have that variety that is, what you want when you're trying to put together a winning lineup.
Mike, as I said, we spent quite a bit of time talking about the new young men, especially in McGroarty and Lambert, that are joining the organization as far as the picks. The other thing that I think many of us, myself included, thought might happen last week that didn't was trades involving potentially Captain Blake Wheeler, who's been rumored quite a bit, or somebody from the defense corps. Do you think that they were at all close to that, or has much of the work been done on that? And takers on potentially some of the players on the Jets roster will be more concrete, or we'll see the way things go in the aftermath of tomorrow as far as who gets what they want on the open market and who's left holding the bag.
Yeah, I mean, the draft was kind of an artificial deadline, I think, for a lot of us when we looked at it, because the assumption is if the Jets were going to have to throw in, say, a sweetener when it came to Blake Wheeler, that a draft pick last week may have been part of that. Obviously, that ship has now sailed, but it's not like they only hold one draft and then never again. There's another draft next year. So potential sweetener could still be there for a move like that. I'm not as surprised, Huss, because the Jets would not have been looking for draft picks back. So I don't know that the draft was as crucial a date. I just think that it was a time when all the GMs were in the same building. There's a lot of networking. There's a lot of talk going on, and it just seemed to line up. But I think we maybe didn't see as many deals as we thought we might have last week. There were a few for sure, some cap-saving moves. I do wonder in these next 18 hours or so, or 20 hours before free agency starts, if we might see a last-minute rush, and that could include here in Winnipeg as teams scramble to kind of assess what they have, what they need, and most importantly, how much they have to spend. And so I am a bit surprised that as we sit here, and again, things could change quickly, as we sit here on Tuesday afternoon, that the Jets have not cleared a single penny of cap space, whether that's Blake Wheeler, Brendan Dillon. He was certainly a name that was being talked about a lot at the draft last week. If you're moving Pierre-Luc Dubois, I know we'll get to that in a minute, that's not a cap-related move. That's a move for completely different reasons that would be happening. Certainly, though, Wheeler, Dillon, those are the two names that I think have come up the most. And, you'd clear if you move both those guys, depending on whether you're retaining salary, but that's potentially, 11 million plus in salary that would give you some flexibility tomorrow when the market opens to potentially do some other things.
Hey, by the way, I'm just seeing a stat from analytics guru Michael Remis that about half the folks that are with us right now aren't subscribed. Folks, what are you waiting for? It's completely free. Hit that red subscribe button. We are just about at 7,700. Would love to get there today, and it certainly helps us spread the channel. And the great news for you is you just go to YouTube. Our latest content is there for you, ready to go, and hit that thumbs up while you're at it as well. Well, Mike, you mentioned Pierre-Luc Dubois, and it's sort of been really interesting. I mean, if we went back and listened to our conversations week by week, the ups and downs on people that were expected to be gone, people that we thought would be staying, how that's changed. I mean, I really do feel that, maybe the comeback with Mark Scheifele and running it back has a lot to do with the very uncertain status of Pierre-Luc Dubois. Right. What do you make of that? And I mean, how do you think things look with both of those guys coming back and presumably the core of this team, for the most part, potentially minus Blake Wheeler, coming back under Rick Bowness for next season?
Yeah, so it's interesting that there's certainly some PLD talk heating up today. Now, there was a lot of talk in Montreal last week as well. And I would suggest, Huss, the origin for the PLD talk is coming from the same place as it did last week. That's largely from Montreal. There's no question a lot of Montreal Canadian fans, and I would suspect media, because it's a great story, would love to see a guy like PLD in Montreal. So I'm not saying to take it with a grain of salt. I just think that, there's perhaps some extra motivation behind some of these rumors going on right now and where they're coming from. That being said, there's a couple of things that have happened here recently that lead me now more than ever to think that PLD's time with the Jets is fleeting. Number one was the admission from Kevin Cheveldayoff last week that they interviewed John Tortorella. That was the first kind of flashing red light that went off for me that, even if they didn't think that they were going to hire John Tortorella, the fact that he was among the candidates, again, we know the history of torts and PLD in Columbus. And then something that just happened yesterday, Huss, and again, these are small things, but they add up. Evgeni Svechnikov, we know, is quite close with Pierre-Luc Dubois. In fact, those guys were on a line together at times last year, and I would argue, I don't think it's much of an argument, Evgeni Svechnikov's most effective play last year was when he was with Dubois and Kyle Connor. Then for reasons it didn't make a whole lot of sense, Paul Maurice breaks those guys up. Dave Lowry went back to it a little bit, but not a whole lot. We know they were junior teammates, they're friends. Evgeni Svechnikov wasn't even qualified yesterday. He's likely a goner. I mean, I guess they could always circle back to him. I don't expect that, given that the qualifying offer would have only been a very small bump from his minimum salary. if they're circling back to him, I mean, what price are they coming? Are they really?
Why do you think they didn't do that? I mean, we talked about it yesterday, and I'll admit, I mean, listen, I'm certainly not president of the Svetch fan club. I thought we saw the law of diminishing returns through the year, and I thought he was a frustrating player at times with some discipline issues on the ice. He certainly seemed to be a well-liked teammate, though.
Yes.
And the bottom line is, for a team like Winnipeg, you don't often see them just walk away from a guy that was essentially found money last year. Many people will say this is a sign, we've seen it around the league, of just how much of a squeeze there is on that lower tier of player right now in the National Hockey League. But what was your reaction when you found it, and have you made sense of it yet?
Well, and again, like lower tier, but his qualifying offer would have been $900,000. So you still have to replace him in the lineup. Even if you're replacing him with a guy on an ELC, like the savings is almost nothing.
Yeah.
And you're right. He was found money. The team still had control over him. Yes, he's streaky. He's inconsistent. He can be frustrating, but this is a guy that was still a first round draft pick. There's something there. And I think the team at times last year was able to tap into that. I'm with you. I was shocked that they are willing to just walk away from that, especially Huss, when this was a guy, okay, maybe they're not selling a ton of Svechnikov jerseys, but he was a hit. Look at the social media stuff they did where they mic'd him up a couple games. I mean, those clips went viral. There was some really good PR that the Jets got out of Evgeni Svechnikov. And for a team that, look, they need some help in that department at times. He seemed to be a breath of fresh air. And I'm surprised. I mean, we obviously haven't got to talk to Kevin Cheveldayoff since this decision was made. We'll talk to him presumably tomorrow afternoon. That's the plan. And that will be one of the first questions is what's going on? Why did you decide to go other ways? Especially Huss. It's not like the Jets are absolutely loaded in forward depth right now. They lost Andrew Copp at the trade deadline. Christian Vesalainen signed in Sweden. Paul Stastny's probably signing with another team tomorrow. And then if you go down the list of additional depth, guys that played some games last year, Austin Pagansky, Adam Brooks, CJ Cease, they're all UFAs. And I get that those aren't players that are moving the needle, but they're still bodies that you're going to have to replace. And again, they had a guy in Svechnikov at a minimal cost who at times was productive. It really is a surprising move. And I don't have an explanation for it. I'm curious to hear what Kevin Cheveldayoff would say.
Well, the one thing that I will say is that, with every dollar being so key and every roster position be so key, I mean, I don't believe that they look at Evgeni Svechnikov and think of him as a top 6 player. And the facts are the facts. The Jets' bottom 6 last year wasn't good enough.
Right.
And I mean, when I do look at that move, the more I think about it over the course of last night into today, I think that they're probably identifying a number of different players potentially tomorrow and through free agency to come in to fill out that bottom 6 that are maybe playing a significantly different style of hockey than Evgeni Svechnikov. And that could be the case, which I guess brings us to tomorrow. And we'll do that. By the way, I should read this for the podcast folks, because I know Remo did a good job of putting it up. But this report on Dubois that we're talking about is from Martin Leclerc, who's with Radio-Canada in Quebec. And I'll just read the Google translation. I'm told the Habs are still working with the Winnipeg Jets with the goal of closing a deal that would bring Pierre-Luc Dubois to Montreal in the long run. The talks almost paid off in the draft last week. Just going to try and see if we've got this second one here. Let's see here. It said, with a center line consisting of Dubois, Suzuki, Doc, and Evans, the rebuild could be quicker than expected. We thought at all about what a potential Dubois deal would look like with the Montreal Canadiens. And if they made that deal this offseason, what does that do to the squad on the ice going into October under Rick Bowness?
Yeah, that's good looking center depth. But if I'm the Jets, I'm asking for Nick Suzuki back for Pierre-Luc Dubois. I mean, what is Montreal giving up? And I haven't really, I've seen some suggestions, and they basically want to throw in all their, Brendan Gallagher and, like the Jets, again, this is a Jets team that is likely going to be spending to the cap ceiling, has Connor Hellebuck for 2 more years, Mark Scheifele for 2 more years, Blake Wheeler for 2 more years if he's not moved. They're in win now mode. They didn't hire a 68-year-old coach in Rick Bowness to oversee a rebuild. If they were going to do that, if they were going to tear down and start over, they would have hired Pascal Vincent or somebody else. They're not bringing Rick Bowness in with the idea of a long, slow rebuild. So if you're trading Pierre-Luc Dubois, your 24-year-old center who is under team control for 2 more years, what are you getting back from Montreal that is helping you win today? Because that has to be priority 1 for the Jets. Because again, the cap savings on Dubois this year, it's not like it's going to free up a ton of cash that would then allow you to maybe do something tomorrow to fill that spot. There's not a lot of Pierre-Luc Dubois out on the open market. And if there were, you're getting into a bidding war with all kinds of other teams for them tomorrow. So, I go back to the Dubois rumors, and while it might make sense on some levels, to me, the return would be key, because if you're the Jets, you're not just asking for a first-round pick next year and a really good young prospect. At least I don't think you are. And if you are, that almost would signal an about face to me about what this team is trying to do. And it would go contrary to everything we've heard and seen to date. I suppose they could pivot, but it's an interesting situation to watch for sure.
Well, okay, so that brings us to tomorrow. What intrigues you about the Jets situation, the cap space that they have, the holes on the roster, and of course the potential exodus of a Captain Blake Wheeler or a member of the blue line, and how that might tie into who's getting a call from Chevy at noon?
Yeah, so I was doing some math today, and they didn't tell you in journalism school that math was an essential part of the job. But, just playing around with some numbers today, Huss, it strikes me that if you kind of hone in on what the Jets roster today looks like, and let's just assume for a moment that they don't make any additions. Now, that's not going to happen. But just to go with what they have right now, the Jets have about $68 million currently tied up on 18 skaters by my count. And that doesn't include the 4 RFAs that got qualifying offers yesterday that I would pencil into the lineup: Dubois, Harkins, Appleton, Gustafson. If you add those 4, even if they accepted their qualifying offers, which they're not going to, certainly Dubois isn't, he's going to get more than his qualifying offer. But even if you just took the number of their qualifying offer, that's about another $9 million. That brings the Jets up to somewhere in the range of $77 million, and it's an $82.5 million cap. So we go back to Dillon, Wheeler, and being a bit puzzled that they haven't moved any of those guys yet to create some more flexibility, because they don't have a ton. Now, again, if we're going with those numbers, they've kind of got a full roster in terms of just sheer numbers. But is it a quality roster? This is a team that wasn't good enough last year, wasn't even close to good enough. And now we're talking about losing some other pieces off a roster that wasn't good enough. Stasny being one of them. Eric Comrie. We haven't talked about Eric Comrie. The Jets don't have a backup goalie right now who's played a single NHL game. Mikkel Burden would be the backup as of today. I do expect, I'd be surprised if the Jets don't re-sign Eric Comrie. It's probably not going to happen before 11 a.m. on Wednesday, because I think he's smart to kind of see what else might be out there in a thin market. But I do think there's a long-standing relationship, and maybe it means the Jets have to pay a little bit more than they wanted to. But I would be surprised if Eric Comrie isn't back. But if it's not Comrie, they got to go shell out money for some other backup goalie. And I suspect they want someone with some NHL experience. And again, there's not a big market out there. So when I'm looking at tomorrow, Huss, 2 things. Certainly the backup goalie position, because I think that's an important one, and shoring up the forwards. The blue line, I wouldn't expect any ads on the blue line, except maybe at a minor league level. Because again, when we're looking at what the Jets have right now, they almost have too many NHL level or NHL ready defensemen. I don't think they're necessarily adding to that, but certainly on the forward end, they're going to be looking at some additions for sure. I don't expect they're going to be in on Evgeni Malkin or Johnny Gaudreau or even Nazem Kadri, but I think there's a secondary tier out there, whether it's Vincent Trocheck, Andre Burakovsky, even a guy like David Perron, the Stromes, Ryan Strome, Dylan Strome. There's some interesting names.
What about Andrew Copp? Like, is that a pipe dream? I mean, it doesn't sound like he's getting a deal with the Rangers, and he will be going to unrestricted free agency. I mean, we were sort of having some fun talking about that earlier on. Do you expect they would even be a call made on that? He's the sort of a player that could really help this team. I think everyone would agree about that.
Imagine, Huss, you could give Chevy the GM of the Year award if he turns 2 months of loaning Andrew Copp to the Rangers into Morgan Barron, Brad Lambert, and Elias Salmonson. Those three process, and then they get Copp back and sign him to a long-term deal. I don't think it's going to happen, but what a story it would be if it did. I wouldn't be surprised if Andrew Copp ends up in Detroit. If I'm the Red Wings, I mean, they seem to be trying to accelerate what they're doing in Detroit. They got a lot of obviously really good young players. Andrew
They're
Copp,
the betting favorite to get Kadri right now. Kadri's plus 150, and the bookies know what's up. Them and the Rangers in that position. I think part of the reason why he's got that number at the Rangers is the fact that it does seem like Copp and Strome are both going to market, and it was sort of positioned as a one or the other throughout the playoffs in that team.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Red Wings were to add Nazem Kadri and Andrew Copp suddenly to a really nice young group, and they just hired a very promising new head coach. They would certainly be a team heading in the right direction. So I'd be surprised if Andrew Copp comes back here. I believe that ship has sailed, but it would be a heck of a story for sure. I mean, I think either way, to me, Huss, this actually, and yeah, I was critical at times of the fact that Jets weren't able to lock Andrew Copp up long term. I think, though, now seeing kind of the whole trade play out, and if Andrew Copp isn't signing long term in New York, that Kevin Cheveldayoff did a pretty good job of what he was able to get back for what ultimately was a 2-month rental.
No doubt about that. Back to Comrie for a minute. For a guy that a lot of people had written off before we even started last season, I mean, it's been well documented on this program how he played when he had the opportunity, and I think did nothing but help his stock both here and around the National Hockey League. I'll tell you what, I don't think he could be hitting the market at a better time right now when you look at the goaltending sweepstakes around the league and the lack of supply and the height of demand in the market right now, Mike. I mean, I think he's due for a pretty nice raise regardless of whether the Jets have to give it to him or he goes elsewhere. And I guess the one other thing that the Jets can't offer him that some other places will is a more realistic opportunity to play a lot, because let's face it, Connor Hellebuyck is the guy in Winnipeg and will be here until someone else has his rights.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I don't think we anticipated the words Eric Comrie sweepstakes, when I certainly if you go back a year ago, and yet, here we are. And there very well could be a sweepstakes surrounding Eric Comrie. I'm just looking here at the goaltenders that are on the market. Obviously, Darcy Kemper, Jack Campbell, they kind of lead the way. Ilya Samsonov is another one. But after that, Huss, after Kemper, Campbell, and Samsonov, there's only one other goalie on the UFA market, and that's Martin Jones, who had more wins than Eric Comrie's 10. And Martin Jones was basically a starter, as were those other guys. Like Eric Comrie had 10 wins last year playing in the shadow of workhorse Connor Hellebuyck. He's going to get paid. And I'm not saying he's not getting $3 million, but he's certainly getting a lot more than an entry level or a league minimum kind of deal, which I'm sure the Jets were kind of hoping. I mean, that's what they signed him to last year because they didn't have any cap space. And then he turned out to be a lot better than maybe anybody anticipated, which is certainly driving his price up. So, like I said, I do expect that the Jets probably get Eric Comrie back, albeit at a higher ticket than they were willing to pay or than they were planning to pay. But I think given what the other options are out there, a lot of guys that are washed up, career minor leaguers, whatever. Like, I just think Eric Comrie, and there's a lot to it. We know the relationship he has with Connor Hellebuck. They share the same agent. They share the same trainer. Eric Comrie was drafted and developed. He keeps finding a way back to this organization. I'd be surprised if he's a goner, but who knows? Money may talk, and money may mean that the Jets simply can't match a price that is offered to him.
Mike, when we look at tomorrow, I mean, do you expect a quiet day for the Winnipeg Jets? Do you think they make moves, or is everything predicated on first moving some salary and a player or two from that roster from last season before anything else happens?
Yeah, so I think I don't think there's a whole lot of middle ground here, Huss. I think it's either going to be a really quiet day or a really newsworthy day, and I'll include kind of the rest of today in that as well, because I think if we're talking about a really busy day, it's probably going to mean that some things have to happen before the day officially gets underway. If the Jets don't make any trades to clear up any cap space, then I'm not expecting anything earth-shattering or needle-moving, because they really don't have the flexibility to do that. So I think it's either kind of go big or go home is the way, no middle ground. And this has been touted as an all-important offseason for the Jets for a number of reasons. I think, Huss, it wouldn't be inaccurate to say that it's been kind of underwhelming so far. They didn't get the coach they were going after. And yes, that's no fault of their own. Not like Barry Trotz chose another team over them. He's not coaching anywhere. But, they took a big swing and they missed. There was a lot of hype going into the draft last week that they might do something. They didn't. Yeah, they picked 7 players. A bunch of them look really promising. Newsflash, they're not helping the team win next year or probably even the year after. They're a few years away. So in the here and now, the Jets are no better today. In fact, you could make the argument they're worse today than they were when the season ended because of what's now going out the door. Losing Paul Stastny and Eric Comrie, if that's who leaves tomorrow to go to other teams, well, the Jets are worse. Now, what are they going to do to fill those spots? Obviously remains to be seen. But I just think the pressure should be on this organization to go big. And right now, they haven't done anything that would give you the suggestion that they're leaning in that direction. But there is still time, albeit it's fleeting.
What does Kevin Cheveldayoff do if it becomes too difficult to find a spot to trade Blake Wheeler? Certainly sounds like Scheifele's coming back. I mean, can they bring this team back essentially as was under Rick Bowness and expect to truly have a new atmosphere, a new outlook, a new attitude, and a new feeling around the team?
I would say they shouldn't, but they absolutely could. And I'll give you one reason, Huss, something they actually brought up a few times last year. The Calgary Flame Daryl Sutter effect. The Jets will probably look to what the Flames did last year versus the year prior and say, yeah, we believed we had a good team last year and we severely underperformed. But with a new coach and a new approach and a clean slate, yeah, we could try and run this back. As I say, it wouldn't be my way of advising them how to go. I don't know if the fans are really going to buy it. As well, Huss, schedule came out last week. I know you looked at it as much as I did. Jets have a really tough first month next season. That's a tough, really tough first 9 games, 6 of them on the road, playing a bunch of really good teams, right off the hop. So if the idea is, yeah, let's run it back and get the good vibes going with a great start to the season, they're in tough for sure. And I just think that, that could blow up in their faces if that's what the plan is. But, again, with the Wheeler contract, and that's the one we've focused on a lot, it's not an easy contract to move. And I'm sure the Jets have balanced the risk reward and how much salary would they be willing to retain. And at what point, if they're retaining X amount of salary, does it actually become prohibitive to move him? Are they better off just keeping him, given that they'd still need to replace him in the top 9? And, just a lot of things that would have to be factored. I suspect this has been a very stressful few weeks for the organization. And it's not getting any easier, is it?
No, it's not. And as I said, so much we'll figure out tomorrow as to what the landscape looks like in 48 hours from now and what that might mean for player movement. If they can't get something done, and Blake Wheeler, because the bottom line is the guy can still play, and he does do a lot of things that can help you win games. Do they have a different captain next year? Do they have a captain next year? I mean, what would happen if they brought the group back together? I mean, that to me is fascinating because we've heard so much about the leadership group and the sort of tiers of the team. I mean, that is something I don't think anybody, including people inside the organization, want to repeat itself. I do wonder how they would handle that if all of that group that went through, that we heard saying what they were saying at the end of the season, is right back in the dressing room together at the beginning of next year, albeit with a new guy behind the bench.
Right. And, so there was a time when we thought maybe Blake Wheeler and Mark Scheifele would both be gone and Pierre-Luc Dubois would be the captain in waiting. Now it's actually plot twist. It might be Pierre-Luc Dubois who's gone and Wheeler and Scheifele are back. And one of them wears the C in Wheeler and one of them wears the A, one of two A's in Scheifele. I think a lot of people thought after that display from Mark Scheifele publicly that, there would have to be a change in terms of the alternate captaincy. I'd love to know what Rick Bowness thinks. We know we had a conversation with Scheifele and he reached out to Blake Wheeler as well.
Has Blake called back yet?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. It was just did he leave him on read on the text? Hopefully he did get back and they had that conversation. But you're right. I mean, that's another question that has to be addressed here. If it's going to be the same leadership group, is that just the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over again and expecting a different result.
Well, let me ask you this, Mike, because I think we know it probably wouldn't go over great with the fan base who is expecting, for obvious reasons, something to change. But never mind the fans. How do you think that goes over with the rest of the Winnipeg Jets that are returning that went through what this team did last season?
Well, if they get rid of one of the guys that I suspect wouldn't be very happy with that, in Pierre-Luc Dubois, I guess that's one less guy to worry about who might have a differing view. Dubois was one of the most frustrated players by the end of the season. So too was Paul Stastny, and he looks like he's gone as well, right? So what are you left with? I guess Nikolai Ehlers and Kyle Connor, they were two other guys along with Dubois and Stastny who I would say were the most vocal about issues with the team and not playing the right way. In Ehlers' case, though, I'll say this, Huss, he seemed to point a lot of the finger at himself, almost comically so, where he was blaming himself.
He always does that. He always does that.
He was blaming himself, for everything from the play on the ice to global warming. Nikolai Ehlers was taking responsibility for. But, yeah, I suppose, if that's one of the ways the team is dealing with what might have been a fractured room is to move out some of the pieces that weren't happy with some of the other pieces. You could make the argument that they moved the wrong pieces out, I suppose, and it's just going to continue to rear its ugly head.
I'll make the argument that they did that in 2020 and that brought Dubois here in the first place, but that's another conversation.
Good point for sure. And it does seem to be a theme to a degree with this organization, doesn't it? Rick Bowness has his work cut out for him on a number of levels, including, whatever roster he ends up having, what it looks like today, what it looks like in 2 days from now, what it looks like in September at training camp, getting these guys to be united, to all pull in the same direction when it's clear they weren't doing that last year. That's going to be a challenge. And I would suggest it's going to be an even bigger challenge, Huss, if the bulk of the roster looks exactly the same as it did last year.
Mike McIntyre, the Winnipeg Free Press, with us here on a packed edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Mike, I know tomorrow's going to be a very interesting day. We're going to actually do an extended show tomorrow, so if you want to jump on with an update at some point, we would love to have you. But fill us in on what you and the Free Press team has ready for tomorrow.
Yeah, so I'll have an extensive preview, including a whole bunch of names, some of which I've mentioned today, some that I haven't yet, on where the Jets might go shopping, where they might dip their toes into the free agent waters. And then myself and Jeff Hamilton will be on site down at Canada Life Center all day tomorrow. And for what could be a very newsy day. Hopefully we're not like the Maytag repairman. I remember those commercials where he just kind of sits around twiddling his thumbs with nothing to do. Hopefully we have lots to write and opine about tomorrow as opposed to nothing. And I suppose if nothing happens, that will give me a lot to opine about if the team essentially does nothing. But yeah, so we'll be all over that and then see what this team looks like in 48 hours. Could be a lot different or maybe not.
Well, I know there's always a lot of room for you in the Free Press, and we've always got a spot for you to opine here with us on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Mike, thanks so much for doing this, and we'll look forward to catching up in the next few days on what should be a very interesting period, one way or the other, for the Jets, not to mention the entire National Hockey League.
Indeed, yeah, looking forward to it. Huss, enjoy.
Thanks for this. Mike McIntyre with us today here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. All right. Hey, big shout out to Zach Caleros and Dalton Schoen, who were stars of the week in the Canadian Football League after that beatdown of the BC Lions on Saturday. The countdown is on to Friday's game. We're going to have some tickets to give away over the next couple days for Friday night, and make sure you head out and check out the Princess Auto tailgate before the game, beginning at 5:30. You've got cheap beers, hot dogs, pop, DJ Finesse spinning, prizes from the Princess Auto gang. It really is the place to be before the game, so make sure to check that out. And, of course, check out Princess Auto, great sponsors of ours, the place where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. 2 locations in Winnipeg, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, and you can always shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. Hey, I meant to mention this yesterday, but a big congratulations to 15-year-old Jen LaFleche of Clear Lake, who won the Diamond Athletic Women's Amateur Championship at Granite Hills over the course of the weekend. And a big congratulations to Breezy Bend's own Ryan Scholdice, who won a 2-stroke victory in the men's mid-am with a total of 224. Of course, Breezy Bend incredibly proud of all of their players competing on the provincial level. If you're thinking about a great home for your family on the course, talk to Corey Johnson at Breezy about the waiting list for next season, and you can find out more on everything Breezy has to offer over at breezybend.ca. Great night to maybe get together with the gang after work. Hey, happy hours in effect at Boston Pizza with great deals on appetizers and beers between 3 and 6 and 9 and 12 each and every night. And when you're there, check out that great new summer menu, including pizza flights are back and carnitas, tacos, and pizzas. And if you're staying home, you can always check out their game day deals and order online at bostonpizza.com. And hey, speaking of that game next week, I know whether you're in your tailgate zone beforehand or in the stadium, many folks trying their first Canadian club and ginger ale at Bomber games. You don't have to wait for the Bomber game. You can pick it up at beer stores throughout the city, as well as Manitoba Liquor Marts. But if you haven't tried it and you're at the game, make sure to get that. And of course, you can get all the Beam Suntory products, including the Great Taste of Canadian Club, the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, at the game throughout IG Field on Friday night. All right. Whew. Busy show today. Let's get Remis back in here because we got to do some picks for our big night at the races tonight. And we also got to get to Coolbet Lines, some very interesting numbers right now up on NHL Free Agency. But first, Remo, what a great show today. Wyshynski and Wheeler were awesome. Rutger McGroarty was as advertised, just a phenomenal guest, and no shortage of topics around the Jets to chop up with Mike McIntyre today.
I wasn't sure if we were going to be able to do it. We squeezed, sorry, I hit the wrong button. Squeezed everyone in here. Some great conversations with Greg leading up to free agency. I'm curious what's going to happen. And what's the other one? Oh, yeah, Scott on the prospects, always great. Rutger, as you said, as advertised. Chat was fired up for Rutger. And who was the last one? Mike.
I mean, you got to feel that too. I mean, I was really excited to have him on because I knew the reaction of Jet fans when he came, when he would come on, if he was anything like he seemed to be on Friday. It just seems to be a really genuine young man, an authentic guy that, brings energy to everything that he does. And as I mentioned with Mike, I mean, there's drafting for talent and there's drafting for need. Every team needs a guy like that, and cannot wait to see his year at Michigan. And hopefully in the not too distant future, putting on a Jet jersey. And as I mentioned, I imagine there'll be a run of McGroarty's at Royal Sports whenever he finally makes the show and gets a number here in Winnipeg.
Yeah, and we definitely ended the show with some juicy Jets rumors. Pierre-Luc Dubois trending on Twitter now. Martin Leclerc out of Montreal. Who's he with? He's got a blue check
Radio
mark.
Canada.
He's got a blue check mark, so they don't give those to just anyone. At least they used to not give them to just anyone. So we'll see. This is out there. It's trending. I mean, I don't know what to make of it. It's kind of funny. You hear Dubois and you think, okay, who are they getting back? Doc, Suzuki. That would make sense, trade centers. But then he adds, wouldn't it be also awesome if they had Dubois, Suzuki, Doc, and Evans as centers? So I have no idea. Would that be a deal that the Jets would jump into? I guess we'll wait and see. That's all you can do. He's putting it out there. People are reacting. We're talking about it.
No doubt about it. All right. Well, listen, before we get to our Assiniboia Downs picks, let's get to Coolbet because, as we mentioned, we've got some pretty interesting lines on NHL free agency for tomorrow. And these questions are pretty simple. Where will player X play game 1 of the NHL regular season? Evander Kane is still favored to go to Edmonton at plus 175. The Capitals plus 275. And the Calgary Flames are 300. Now, we were doing this a little earlier, finishing up the end of the lock shop, so about 2 hours ago. And the Calgary Flames were plus 350 to get Johnny Gaudreau. I think that news of Frank that the Flames have upped their offer to $10 million a season for 8 years has pushed that number down. Calgary's now at plus 200. And I think the conventional wisdom is that if they don't get Johnny Gaudreau, they move over to Evander Kane and try and steal the natural out of northern Alberta and throw him down in the southern part of the province.
I'm really curious where number 9 lands. Sorry, number 91. Whatever number, that's Evander Kane.
He'll always be number 9 here.
Yeah, he'll always be number 9. So I'm curious where he would land. I think he's looking to cash in big, whoever offers him the most money. Although, how could you resist a side next to Connor McDavid? Edmonton is going to be interesting with the goalie. I guess seems like Jack Campbell. Johnny Gaudreau, I'm not sure. Does he just take the money? If he took the money, I really think that would mess up Calgary's structure. They still have to sign Mangiapane and Tkachuk. And I think it would cost them. It probably cost them close to the $25 million in cap space they have. So that's going to be a tough one. I have no idea.
Cap space is great, but if you're losing top players like that, I mean, you've got so much to make up.
Yeah, well then how? Yeah, well I'm saying they don't have to. They have to. I think they have a lot of roster spots to fill, but they owe those guys a lot of money. So I don't know if they can, fill the rest of their roster spots and pay all those guys.
What about Malkin? Malkin still has Pittsburgh as the favorite at minus 120, but he will go to market and see what is out there. And I can't help but think the Washington Capitals at 7-1 would be an incredibly juicy story for him to sort of go on the opposite side of that great rivalry and play with this countryman, Alex Ovechkin, especially considering the question marks about whether Nick Backstrom's ever going to be able to return to that lineup.
Yeah, he's got the Russian connection with Alex Ovechkin. What would be a crazy twist in the Pens Caps rivalry if he did go there. I saw people floating that out. I'm curious what the Rangers are going to do. They're out on Copp. What kind of center are they looking for? They're rumored to be in on Dubois. Who is their guy?
Kadri, I think.
You think they're Kadri giving a guy that much money? $8 million? His career best before the season was 54 points. Kind of had the Brady Anderson type season, where it's just like out of nowhere, 50 bombs, but it was Kadri's 100 points. So that would be interesting. But Malkin, he wants to win. I think if you want to win, it seems like Washington would be the place to go. Like, did the Ducks sign anyone? Like, are they going to be decent this year?
They're going to sign Josh Manson. They're going to get him back after his 2-month stop in Colorado to win a quick cup and imagine coming back.
Yeah, I'll say the thing about Malkin is he's been really good when he's healthy. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy. And I know because I keep taking him in fantasy. You're like, how I'm getting Malkin so late. What a great pick. And he's never plays only half the games. Klingberg to, who did Greg mention? Klingberg to Seattle. Carolina also mentioned they got rid of Tony DeAngelo. So as we go around, I don't know, maybe there's some money to be made if you want to bet Malkin to Washington.
No doubt about it. As I said, hit Coolbet right now. Click on NHL. You'll see the NHL Free Agency odds. It's all there if you've never played before. Use the promo code WST for a 100% deposit on your first deposit up to $200. Just a quick note of the CFL lines right now. I see the Bombers, when we did the lock shop this morning, the Bombers were -4. They're now -4.5. The Alouettes were -7.5. They're now -8. The Argos, who were 3, are now +2.5. And the Hamilton Tiger Cats are now -6.5 against the Ottawa Redblacks. So I'm not sure whether Dusty and I completely moved these lines, but every side that I'm on has changed in favor of that side in the last little bit. Check out today's lock shop if you haven't seen it already, wherever you get your podcasts, or on myself or Dustin Nielsen's Twitter feeds with the video as well. All right, Remo, big night tonight. We're going to Assiniboia Downs. The gang will all be here. Shout out to all of our winners. I know Gitch Lishka was one. T. Konopali, I think we're going to meet him tonight. And just remind you folks, if you do decide to make a trip out to the track, race number 3 is going to be the Winnipeg Sports Talk race. We'll be heading down. We will be in the Terrace Dining Room for the first hour or two, but then we'll head down to the main area in the winner's circle after race 3. So if you do want to kick around and hang out with the crew, come and say hi. That is the best time to do it and to grab us. Remo, have you made your selections today for the races yet? Okay, you do that because I've been quite busy, and I'm gonna bet the later races. So we can do straight cash homie on the first few races when we are there. Where you want to go?
Nice looking transparent cash you got there.
That's right. There it is.
So here, I'll do my picks. Yeah, that's real.
Canadian currency. Currency.
The first race tonight is 7:35, as you said. We'll be there, but the Winnipeg Sports Star race 3. So I'm actually just gonna bet on the later races. And if you want to know how we did yesterday, I think I only won because one of my horses got scratched, right? They scratched them all, so I got a refund. It was awesome.
Hey, shout out. Who was it in the chat yesterday
Rob
that gave us that tip?
He knows the stuff.
You're the man. I didn't go with the odds. I didn't get my triactor box, but I did win $15 on that horse you mentioned. So I appreciated that. T. Konopali's bringing a stack tonight. All right. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Bring a responsible stack. I'll say that. Okay, here we go. Race 5. I'm going with Quinellas, a $10 Quinella. I got a 3-4. Ruby and the Stars. As I bring it up here. Ruby and the Stars and Fly Through Traffic. And then I got my other Quinella, $10 Quinella on race 6. Oh, Rob's in here. He says, "My pleasure. Happy to help." I got to ask Rob for some tips tonight for our trip.
No doubt.
But race 6, 9-11, I got... Is that what I got? Wits Memories and Silver Heights. I believe that's it. That is what I picked.
Nicely done. Look at this. This 7th race tonight has right now 11 horses in it. This is the biggest race I think we've seen all year long. Well, I see that Real Grace is the favorite. I'll throw that one on. I do like, Plentiful's in that mix as well. We'll go Plentiful. We've seen some good turns from her. And do I go with the chalk and just take Surprisingly Perfect? Or maybe do we go into the middle and take, let's go with number 4. It's that time. We're going to go 3, 4, 5 in this one. So we'll take that. And then let's go with number 5, Real Grace to win. So we'll put 4 on that one. Real Grace, W, thank you very much. And then race number 6. Did you do race 6, Stream?
I did 6 and 7. Which one did you just do? 7?
I just did 7. Holy smokes. And this is another massive race. Where 11 Silver Heights, as you mentioned, is the favorite. Well, I love the Sawickis at Silver Heights. We're definitely gonna have to put them in one. We'll do the $1 triactor box with Silver Heights. We'll go Wits Memories as well, And let's go with, shall we say, how about Halo's Phenomenon, number 6. So we'll put that in. And then I think I've got $4 left, which means I'll take Silver Heights to win in that race. $4. Silver Heights, let's go. All right, gang. So, hey, all winners, we'll see you there, 6:30. I think we'll be getting everybody in and dining in on that world-class prime rib buffet. Probably fired a couple picks as well. Should be a hell of a lot of fun. Looking forward to seeing everyone. And as I mentioned, everybody welcome. We'll be down in the main area in the grandstand after race 3 for the Winnipeg Sports Talk race. And then Remo, tomorrow, busy day. We'll do an extended show. We'll have a ton of guests coming on. And I'm not sure whether we'll put all of it in on the podcast, but for folks that watch us on YouTube, make sure to kick around and turn your notifications on, as well as obviously be subscribed to the channel. It's completely free. So you'll get a heads up when we go live tomorrow, which will be as early as 11 o'clock, but probably in and around 11, I'd say. And we'll have some fun, bring in a whole whack load of guests and just kind of react live to all the action coming around the National Hockey League in free agency, with a focus, of course, on the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, I'll be watching, reacting live. It kicks off at 11, so I figure we'll start it up. Who do we have confirmed? Edmonds, Dennis Bernstein coming on, Murat's coming on. I texted Tom Gazzola. He said he's good to join. So if maybe Mike wants someone else from.
Yeah, I'll lean on Pat or Will, my old pals from the Sportsnet shows I was doing in Calgary. Very interested to see what happens with Johnny Gaudreau, whether he gets a deal tonight or whether he does go elsewhere on a 7-year deal.
I find the Canadian teams, Ottawa has been really interesting, especially if they get Claude Giroux, they get to Brinkat, they unload Matt Murray's contract. Toronto.
Summer of Dorion.
Yeah, Summer of Dorion. Toronto, everyone's trying to figure out this Matt Murray move, and I guess the explanation is they think that he's good. And he had a really good that's the explanation. They think that he's good and he can be the guy. And a lot of the stats would disagree, although he did have a very hot stretch before getting injured toward the end of the season. Vancouver, no one knows what's going on there. But they're trying to finally figure out a direction now that they got a new GM.
People are probably saying the same thing about Winnipeg right now.
Hey, we got Winnipeg bias here. I think you might be right, okay? I think Winnipeg thinks that, they still have a shot at the playoffs when, maybe they should be doing what Chicago's doing. But I would say what Chicago's doing is terrible for the sport. So I don't think they should consider that. What's the other one? Edmonton. They need a goalie. Seems like who's the guy?
Well, Jack Campbell likely going there. Although I don't know how they've got a deal done before you're even allowed to talk to these guys. But that's another conversation for another day.
Is Montreal going to do anything? Seems like they've kind of done all their work at the draft. Are they going to trade for Dubois?
Well, that would certainly fire up the show tomorrow if something like that happened. We will see. Anyways, folks, tomorrow we'll start early. Join us. Turn your notifications on so you know when we are live. And I will tell you, but anyways, count on around 11 a.m. for us getting going for NHL Free Agency. And we'll do probably a double show into around 3 p.m. tomorrow with a 4-hour stream. And most of that, I'm sure, will hit on the podcast a little bit later on. Thanks to all the sponsors and thanks to another great group of folks here with us. If you're new, great to have you with us. Hit this red subscribe button. Join us daily, normally at 1 p.m., but a special early start tomorrow for NHL Free Agency. And we'll see you at the Downs tonight, folks. Congrats to the winners. Come hungry. And everybody else will be down on the grandstand. Race number 3 in the winner's circle afterwards. So if you're there, make sure to come back and say hi. Thanks to all the sponsors that make this show happening. Speak of sponsors, I got to get out of here so I can get down and see Andrew and the gang over at F Apparel. And yes, I know there's a lot of people wanting me to wear a suit. Probably not happening tomorrow, but once my new duds from F come in, I'll surprise you one of these days, and you'll all be shocked at how they can clean up even a hoodie-wearing individual like myself. Okay,
the chat has been putting bets in, like if we can get to 300 likes one show, like while we're live, we'll wear suits the next day. So I think we got 2-something right now.
I'm in for that.
One day.
We're just coming in under the wire. Although I would like the likes. Would like to be forced to throw the blade on at some point soon. Who knows? Maybe it'll be tomorrow, folks. Yeah, Ty.
Skate blade?
No, blade. Ty. You wouldn't know that. But anyways, that's
I think I've heard Gary say that actually.
yeah, that could be a Gary Lawlessism. I still have a few in the vocab. Anyway, speaking of which, I'm heading down to F Apparel right now, heading to Assiniboia Downs later on today, folks. Thanks so much for joining us. Make sure to join us the next few days. We'll have some bomber ticket giveaways and be all over NHL free agency and the latest with the Winnipeg Jets. Thanks to a great group of guests today and a great job by Remis for helping set up. Greg Wyshynski was phenomenal. Scott Wheeler, great stuff on the draft. Make sure you to go back and check it if you missed it. And of course, the energy of the newest member, or one of the 2 first-round picks of the Jets, Rutger McGroarty, who joined us live, and of course, Mike McIntyre from the Winnipeg Free Press. Folks, extended show tomorrow. WST, NHL Free Agency. Don't miss it. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.